This is the first from half the hole in the store, by the way. They just get freeze. Yeah, I use right. Freeze it to open. Right now it's better. Yeah. I know. I fall sick. Fine.
This fishing.
Everyone good?
This meeting is being recorded.
Anyway, grab the got that out of the way.
Okay. Hello. Good evening, everybody. This is the Wednesday, March 11th, 2026 meeting of the Hamilton Public Library Board. I'm really excited we have so many people here, and I'm looking forward to hearing what everybody has to say. So I will just get right into the agenda. I'll start with the land acknowledgement. The city of Hamilton is situated upon the traditional territories of the Erie, Yushrol, Huron-Wendat, Haudenosaunee, and Mississaugas. This land is covered by the District 1 Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, which was an agreement between the Haudenosaunee and Anishinaabe to share and care for the resources around the Great Lakes. We further acknowledge that this land is covered by the Between the Lakes Purchase, 1792, between the Crown and the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. Today, the city of Hamilton is home to many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island, North America, and we recognize that we can and must do more to learn about the rich history of this land so that we can better understand our roles as residents, neighbors, partners, and caretakers. Okay, so the first item on the agenda we're going to is an update on the operating budget, so I will pass that on to Paul.
Thank you, and I just wanted to acknowledge that, as everyone knows, the budget was passed, and want to thank Councillor Smith-Eakin and Gress for supporting the restoration of that 1%, which was passed by Council anyways. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. I just want to highlight that as well. Thank you to Councillor Shumukin that amended for us and for supporting the library board of the budget discussions, and thank you to the mayor and city council as well for keeping that pumping the cost. We're very excited about it. Next on the agenda, in the discussion, I actually have a statement from a member of our board, from Nick. So I will just pass it along to Nick to make a quick, brief statement before we get into the next item.
Thank you, Chair. On Monday morning, I received an email from an advocacy group. The email was not signed by an individual, but by a group. It was anonymous, sent from an also anonymous Gmail account. The email was sent to me at my place of work. This is odd, as my work address is not commonly known, and I have never used it to conduct library business. This address is out there, but you have to go digging to find it. It bears reminding, my work email is not mine, but belongs to my employer. Someone on the outside decided to insert themselves into the working relationship I had with my employer. It also bears reminding that board members are volunteers. This means that someone decided to dig up personal information on volunteers, send them an anonymous letter at their place of work. This is wildly inappropriate. I am not ashamed to admit that I was creeped out. In 20 years of volunteering for libraries, this is the first time someone intruded into my personal affairs. I raised this with fellow board members and our CEO. It turns out that I was not the only one so approached at my workplace. I can only imagine how this went over with the women of our board. It also turns out that this group sought to approach the board through the proper regular means and may have been rejected. I do not know. They then went looking for a workaround, digging out personal information on board volunteers and going through their organization. These are abusive tactics. It changes this group's advocacy into harassment. There exist clear boundaries for communication, and this group chose not to respect those boundaries. My workplace policy requires that I report such incidents to management, which I did. Now they're involved, another old level of attention. This is a personal violation, the likes of which I'm sure many of our members can relate to in their own lives. Some stranger thought it was okay to chase me at my place of work. It is not okay.
Thank you for your statement. moving on, we do have 3 delegations for report tonight, as well as some holdout room receipt and bragging, which will be attached to the agenda for everybody to see. So the first delegation we have is Jesse Searns. Hi, Jesse. You want to just make your way over to the mic, and then it's a little bit tricky to. Okay. We have 3 delegations tonight, so we're going to try to keep them about 5 or so minutes, and then I will allow some time for questions at the end. So just keep that in mind, since we do have a packed agenda, and we'll be able to ask any questions at the end. So please, Lori, won't.
President, you guys, I'm sorry for your statement. It's certainly no stranger to receiving emails.
Please scoop up.
Oh, sorry. I have to pick it up. You pulled it? Is that better?
Yes,
Yep,
that's
that's
better.
All right, so I'm going to get some context, I suppose. My name's Jessie Stearns. Just to give you some things about me, I suppose. I'm a co-researcher for the Hamilton Homeless Mortality Data Project. I was a housing worker for several years in family homelessness, including in encampments, including with families with children, and Central Public Library is my neighborhood library. My son and I came to Central regularly when he was little, and now being 18 continues to on his own. More recently, I've attended speakers events and have enjoyed the library for the space it provides me to study and PhD student of last year as well. Thank you to the members of the Hamilton Public Library Board for allowing me to speak, and request that you do not endorse item 8.1, the file editing and improving the safety essential protocol. I want to begin, I'm going to just jump right in, but I want to begin by talking about discrimination and how the discussion around this proposed protocol encouraged this. When you craft a particular image of a kind person and as a burden, a risk, or a threat, you're crafting and embodying discrimination. Creating anti-checkpoints to a public space in the name of kind of burden, risk, or threat is carding discrimination. Whether done by library staff or security, the result is the same. There are rounds of evidence debunking familiar discriminatory statements like, there shouldn't be a problem if you have nothing to hide. Each person entering the library is an individual, not a kind, not a group. Policies and practices that erase and promote this person-centered idea by listening to individual requests you need are better aligned with library policies, the Human Rights Code, and are better equipped to ensure accessibility and humanity accountability. The crafting of a kind person to rationalize and acting on a high-impact system doesn't allow for a flexible and responsive attention to individual differentiation. Human rights law and their accessibility and equity statements exist because of well-documented experiences of policies and practices that are known to be targeted and discriminatory. If someone is short and can't reach a shelf, for example, you may respond by adding a stool. If someone uses a mobility device and can't walk stairs, you may respond by adding a ramp or an elevator. If someone is nursing a baby, you may consider policies, places, educations, or signage, for example. Similar actions can be mitigated to prevent certain mistakes. For example, beyond authority, the Court of Law suggests opposite measures for everyday guests and people that can do that and might be experienced in not. That has not been proposed with the authority measure. I did do a research, a researcher on available documents for to guys about this, and there are quite a few available, especially from Winnipeg. Group has had similar controversies or similar things going on. So I also want to say, this is still working, yeah. I also want to say that in no way do I want to diminish anyone's individual experience of the day-to-day. For me, that's an homeless mortality data project, as I mentioned earlier, something I've been doing for a little over 4 years now, was born from my experience of trying to reconcile what I imagined and was told my work was supposed to be each day with the actual experiences that were often unseen and almost unilaterally unheard by the general public when it matters. This is exactly where good governance and thoughtful policy and practice is most needed. To listen and at times to acknowledge that often unheard people and places, and to promote policies and practices that respond to community need while actively discouraging discrimination. I'm not requesting or promoting some kind of a political idea or compassion or empathy. What you will decide on this protocol is anything but apolitical. Public is meant to be public. I did watch the meeting from last month, and I do have a couple of comments that kind of like were in my mind from that. And that's that, advocacy to elected offices or levels of government, if that's what the board feels they need to do, is foundational to our democratic process. To suggest, as was suggested during that meeting, that advocacy is futile in the current provincial Ford government's stance is an abandonment of the principles in their policies. To claim futility while seemingly being able to craft a group of people as burdens, risks, threats, repeatedly in the media, to advocate for this protocol supports a discriminatory insult to injury. These claims are on the record. To continue to name community needs as competing, which we are doing a lot in this community, as though there's one against the other and not things that can work together, undermines the library and our community's ability to respond. Criminalization is real and supports the to beyond regulations and bodies that count metrics as evidence. Should you decide to consider moving ahead with the protocol anyhow, attending to defining the desired benchmarks for measurement on ports 34 and 35 is needed. For example, what are the benchmarks the library hopes to meet? What would success look like? Are the monitoring and documentation proposed in line with these benchmarks? That's really unclear in this document. And I worry that more discriminatory things come of measures that aren't done with something in mind. Central library is a needed material resource. Like Councillor Sarah seen my face a couple of times. I've delegated numerous times about the need for material resources, like material ones, not supports as like a person that's going to talk to you, like the ones that actually people say. Sorry.
No, keep going.
Okay. Central library is a needed material resource. It is central and it is public. It provides computer access, Wi-Fi access, protection from the extreme weather. Not central anymore from when I looked at the website today. A place where people can meet, use the bathroom, access social and cultural programs, learn and be around others. Work that builds community rather than dividing is possible. I have personally seen this done well. The library is one of those material resources so desperately needed in our community, especially for people who are tracking the journey. In my opinion, the proposed protocol puts its access at risk without full consideration of potential alternatives. And I am not going to describe or talk about terminalization and all of, but I think that the written delegations did a pretty good job of that. Who might be excluded, despite some of the measures that are in place for sort of universal library part of VIVA. So that's it. I'm making your time search.
Okay, thank you very much, Jesse, for your comments and your thoughtful foundation. Do you mind if I just ask if you have any questions? And okay, does anybody have questions of Jesse? Anybody want to do a pounce press? Go at this.
I think this is working as
Yes.
I'm colorblind, so I can't tell the difference between changing colors of lights, so apologies. You said something kind of quickly there that I wanted to ask if you could unpack. I think you said not essential when I looked at the website today. Is that what you said? And like, what do you meant by that?
I looked on the City of Hamilton's website. It used to be that extreme weather events meant that if we go to public libraries, that Central Library is omitted. It's like named towards the is omitted from on the site. So it says corner places, and then it says all of the libraries during operating hours except Central Library.
I don't have a memory of all the different places that are used as warming spaces because you have quite a few. Do you understand that it was on the list before and now isn't? Like, is it a change you're witnessing, or is you
That's my understanding that all libraries are on the list at some point. I don't know when it was removed.
Okay, thanks. That's helpful for me to ask a question later on about that. Shoot it. Thank you.
So I'm just gonna pass on call to answer to that and provide a comment about that one.
And just to answer, to clarify that, that's correct. And it's actually been since, I believe it was 2023, maybe a little bit earlier. We were approached by the city to see if we would be a warming center, which we have been. We recently asked the city to remove us and did let the board know. This was reported last month. We asked to be a central library from that. And I think we can go into merits of that and talk about that. But yeah, just to clarify, we did ask, we did get removed We haven't removed any other library.
Are there any other housekeeping?
I'm not, is this working? No. I'm not colorblind, but I still have to. Here it comes. Okay, thank you. See how helpful everybody is here. Jesse, thanks for your presentation. I hear you loud and clear. I'm wondering if you have, based on your review, which has obviously been extensive, any specific advice, suggestions, or potential answers that you'd like to share with the board as to how we can more effectively respond to the obviously the needs in our community and the needs of our 195,000 community members. A lot of
Thank you for the question. As much as I can in the very limited time there, right? I think this is a bigger conversation.
yes.
A much bigger conversation, not it just happens to be everywhere today, because of things that are ongoing.
Break down your suggestion.
Right. No, but I did mention something there, right? So, for example, the ability to read people without the idea of who you're meant to be excluding, without the idea of harming people, without the, sorry for lack of a better word, the like rhetoric about who is causing the problem and who is the recipient of the problems. Like pitting people against each other. So that, I mean, I did suggest that in the game. You know, like perusing, looking through, there's I think I can open a report. Thank you. A report from some researchers from the University of Manitoba that they had put out. I imagine some bullet right here, and also there's some research in there from like the Canadian Association of yeah. And there are quite a few suggestions in there. Some of which that I see done in groups and things that are facilitated that I'm a part of in the community. One that may or may not work here, I'll give an example, is like sometimes more inviting measures like food and water and somebody to read you is better than the ones that exclude. Proactively including, right? So, I mean, I would argue that this is my library. I just walk here from the North End today. When I got into a library, it was no different here than anything I was in outside. And so there's like quite a broad range of things that we might need to attend to as a community that includes the library, especially since the library has been used as a space for extreme weather. It's used as a space extensively for people who are not, who don't have housing. So, I mean, this was a good beginning of a conversation that isn't start with exclusion. And I know it's not the beginning of a conversation for people working in the library. That's why I brought up in Talita as well. It's ongoing and it's been ongoing for a while. I mean, that's all we could say. Like, I am more than happy to sit down and talk and discuss this. There are people, I know there's people in this room that know how to convey a space in a way that is quite healthy and good and inviting, that aren't being asked for their input. And I'm just one person who has those experiences. I've been in tons of rooms, tons of spaces, doing tons of activities, and I would say I have never personally, I've had to respond to emergencies. I've had to respond to death. I've had to respond to overdose. I mean, the kinds of imagery that's being produced in media depictions of people is not at all what my experience has been. And respect Dork's bold voice.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jesse, for your response. Just in the interest of time, we'll move on to the next delegation. But thank you so much for all the great work you do with the community and for preparing that statement. Thank you. Yes. Yeah. Okay.
I'll watch it later.
Okay, so next on the list, we've got QP932 and Lisa Hunt is going to be speaking, I believe. So Lisa, we'll keep it the same. If you can keep your comments maybe to about 5 minutes, and then we'll allow some questions at the end if you're okay with that as well.
Thank you very much. Good evening, members of the board and Hamilton Public Library members of Library Senior Leadership. Thank you for allowing us to delegate tonight. My name is Lisa Hunt. I am the president of QB Local 932. That is the Canadian Union of Public Employees that works with library workers here at the Hamilton Public Library. QB 932, the union representing workers at Hamilton Public Library, do not support the requirement of a Hamilton Public Library card to enter Central Library. While we are pleased the employer is acknowledging the terrible situation for workers at Central, this is a misguided response. Public libraries are a cornerstone of democracy, grounded in an unwavering commitment to equity, access, and inclusiveness. The seemingly simple act of requiring a library card creates an exclusionary and elitist space. This is an imposition that contradicts HPL's mission, vision, and values. Freedom to discover and belong becomes a vacuous slogan when entry is limited in a public building. The value of inclusion, which in part states, equity informs our program design so we can create fairer access to opportunities and build a more just society, also rings hollow under this carding proposal. When times get tough, adhering to our values is paramount. To impose carding on the majority because of the challenging behaviors of a minority is unfair and onerous on members and staff. Carding sanctions discrimination. Staff worked as gatekeepers during the pandemic due to a provincial mandate. Then they faced verbal abuse and tense interactions with angry members, even from library members who often used our spaces without incident. The announcement of this pilot has already started to produce some of the same reactions. Trying to solve this problem by putting library staff in harm's way is unacceptable. This suggested process also assumes that drug users, dealers, and troubled people don't have library cards. Also, if they are denied access at Central, they may migrate to other branches. What happens then? We are concerned that this pilot will become the go-to solution for surrounding branches should problems arise there, creating harmful situations for staff and community members across the city. We are silent as to why only 2 solutions to this current crisis are being presented. There are other less dramatic solutions than carding or closing worth considering. We know this board cares about library staff. The union welcomes an opportunity to discuss ways to mitigate current issues while minimizing risks and upholding HPL's values. The union always strives for productive and respectful dialogue. We have attempted to express the staffing and security issues that we have seen at Central to management for years. When we have brought it up in the past, whether at labor management, joint health and safety, or at Central building check-ins, our concerns either fell on deaf ears or were met with, what more can we do? This has led many of our union members to feel unheard, frustrated, and dismissed. Library workers are being I apologize for that. As a union executive, we also feel dismissed. We have raised concerns about austerity staffing models, including reducing the number of staff to 1 person on floors 2 and 3 at Central. Our concerns have been, management has cited bad budget year as the reason for doing this, as well as staffing reviews and different staffing models. The senior leadership has maintained that roving managers and security is enough. It very obviously is not. We have already presented some solutions to management, including having a management person on site at Central during all open hours. In this crisis, we've also suggested removing work from home options for managers, as well as, because it is imperative that it comes all hands on deck, including a manager or director on site at all times. And we do acknowledge that this is the plan for the first 2 weeks of carding. We remain concerned that the bad budget year has impacted and will continue to impact the availability, scheduling of our security guards. Security guards are essential at Central, not only for security, but also for de-escalation and first aid administration. We know that none of these solutions can hit the root of the problem, but no library policy truly can. Overdoses, homelessness, and mental health struggles are congregating issues in public libraries across the country. Yet none of these institutions have opted to introduce the inequitable idea of carding. Those libraries that did close all reported the issues arose again when cold weather months returned. How will Hamilton Public Library know that this pilot has succeeded due to more than just the warmer weather? Carting or closing pushes the marginalized out onto the streets where we know supports are lacking. In HPL's 2025 strategic plan, the board stated their commitment to, quote, enhancing safety and security in our spaces, consistent with our values. We will continue to engage trusted partners to bring support to our spaces based on need, end quote. We ask you to remain firm to your commitment to collective wellness, keep library staff safe, and let library members into Central without barriers or discrimination, while we continue to press other levels of government to do their part better. We can't fix a problem by creating another harm. Thank you for your time.
Sorry. Thank you, Lisa, for your comments and for preparing that delegation on behalf of the union. We really appreciate the engagement of this. If you don't mind, I just want to open it up to the members of the board for questions. Maybe keeping it at about 5 minutes. Dana, what?
Oh, thank you, Lisa. I guess I just wanted to ask a question that somewhat parallels the question that Councillor Meekin put to Ms. Stearns. And in your letter, you make reference to less dramatic approaches. You also made reference to having identified other approaches in either labor management committee or other settings. Can you, and I appreciate as well, this is a larger conversation, but I'd like to get some sense as to what some of those other, if not the actual content, but some of the sort of conceptual components, if you will, might be of those sorts of things.
Yeah, I do want to take a moment to acknowledge that the management has introduced several systems of support in the library, something that honestly other community groups should be doing for us, but we are doing as the library because we have to. We have suggested having management on site at Central at all times. This is something that other libraries across Canada have started doing in their problem libraries. We have also had an ongoing conversation about the staffing model, whether roving works. It is nice to have someone who is actively walking the floors, but it is also good when you are stuck on a desk to have someone who can back you up immediately right there. And as you said, we do have a lot of dialogue with the employer, and we would like to continue that. We would also like to see other community groups included, and I think that the turnout tonight has proven that there is active interest to helping out the community. So we would like to see the conversation continue.
Chief Lisa, does anyone else want to stretch? Go ahead, please.
Thanks. And just to clarify, what you're saying, you talked about advocating to different levels of government. But what does that look like from your perspective? Because that takes all kinds of forms. You do counsel all the time, ineffectively, I might add, and sometimes effectively. But what does that look like to you?
Again, this is another thing that it's such a big issue, and I understand that. I understand why we are having this conversation tonight. I understand why we are here. I know why we're here. I have talked with my members. I know what they experience. But what we really need is nothing that the library can provide. What we really need are things like housing. We need things like supervised consumption sites. We need other places that people can go during the day to use drugs, to receive treatment. As library workers, we have been doing so much more than we are trained for. And we have been doing it for years. And I think that is an indictment on our system. And I know that advocacy is hard, it takes time, it feels hopeless. But we as library workers cannot be the only ones to provide those supports for our community.
Thanks. I think what you're also saying, if I could get you just to maybe clarify a little bit, is you're urging, I guess, us to slow down. and do some more consultation with people in the room, people in the community, and give up an approach that you're proposing would be better than the approach we have now.
It does worry me that this approach has taken both so long to put together and also been put together very quickly. This has been an issue that we have brought up to management for years. It has been bad previous years. I know that Paul has given you probably a background that this is not the first year that this has happened. This is the worst year that this has happened. But this is not the first year. And if things don't change, it will not be the last. So we are not looking at a 2-month pilot. We are looking at what do we do when it gets bad again. And, you know, it does need the whole community to come together. And I will not believe that advocacy is useless.
Thank you very much, and thanks for your delegation and everything you do to support library workers.
Lisa, I think there was one more question. Next question.
Dana took my question.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Okay, she beat you to it. Okay, thank you, Lisa.
Thank you.
We will move on to our final verbal delegation. That is the library workers for supervised consumption sites, and we have somebody named Kranz here. Francis. Okay. And we also have Kendra online, I believe. Kendra? There you are. Okay. So, same deal. If you all can maybe take about 5 minutes, and then we'll leave some time for questions afterwards. Okay? Go ahead.
That sounds good. I just want to double-check it's this on.
Yes, I think so.
Rich, good evening. My name is Francis, and I'm speaking on behalf of Library Workers for Supervised Consumption Sites, a growing collective of library workers and students across Ontario. We're here tonight to seek as we value HPL and believe in what it stands for, as such, we are asking this board to reconsider this decision to implement a members-only carding policy. Members of our collective work in public libraries across Ontario, including HPL Central Library. Every day, we see our patrons navigate housing instability, profound poverty, social exclusion, and a toxic drugs pilot's ability people. We had watched the closure of the supervised consumption sites and the defunding of harm reduction services push drug use and drug poisonings into our library. We didn't choose this reality. It was created by policy failures at the local, provincial, and federal levels, and now HPL is being asked to absorb the consequences, without resources, without the mandate, and without the support needed to do so. We understand the pressure this board's under. We understand the desire to act, but we must make it clear. A carding policy will not make the library safer. It will make it more exclusive, and for the people at risk. This distinction is the difference between light and death. Getting and keeping a library card is not simple for everyone. Think about unhoused persons whose belongings are repeatedly stolen. The person fleeing domestic violence with no fixed address. The undocumented or underdocumented immigrant who is presenting ID at public door is not an inconvenience, it's a threat. For these individuals, the library's low barrier access is not a preference, it's a lifeline. When you require identification to enter a public space, it is no longer truly public. And when people are being turned away, are disproportionately poor, racialized, and already marginalized, that is not a safety policy, that's exclusion. We have heard concern that the library is no longer a safe place for children. We share a deep commitment to children in our libraries. Many of us are children's librarians and parents ourselves. That bringing this as a choice between children and bakers who use drugs is a false binary of harmful one. Children are harmed by the toxic supply crisis too, through their own or the family member's drug use, or through the loss of a loved one. The answer is not to push the crisis out of sight by locking out the people. HPL is already doing harm reduction work, moving the children area, creating family bathrooms. These are all meaningful steps. We're asking you to build on them and not abandon your mission. HPL's mission statement commits that this institution to supporting the value and dignity of all individuals and to overcoming the legacies of colonization, racism, and discrimination. A current policy does not uphold these values, it undermines us. Constant surveillance is already an exhausting daily reality for people experiencing homelessness, and many marginalized people in Hamilton. Adding ID checks at the door entangles people further in institutional monitoring. And for many, it will mean simply not coming in. This is not a sacred library. That is a smaller one. We are not here to say libraries are or should be supervised in something sites. We know it is not. But we are asking the board not to correct this mistake with another. Before any decision is finalized, we encourage HPL to engage in meaningful conversations with frontline workers, patrons, and community organizers who live with crisis daily. The knowledge is here. The people who can help us build a humane, evidence-based response are here. Use us. What we want is a library that is safe, welcoming, and truly accessible for all. Children, seniors, newcomers, and guests. People who use drugs as well. These goals are not involved, but a current policy will put them in conflict. And the people who will pay that price are those who can afford to do so, or are those who can at least afford. Reconsider this policy. Sit down with your workers and your community. We're ready, and we are asking you to be ready too. Thank you for your time.
Okay. Thank you, Francis, for that. Does anybody have any questions? The delegate, Nick, go ahead, please.
You stated that framing library safety as a choice between children and members who use drugs, are unhoused, or experiencing mental health issues creates a harmful false binary. I was wondering if you could expand on that and how it helped me understand how these communities can coexist.
Well, you're already starting to do the work to allow that to coexist, such as moving the children's area, creating family bathrooms. A lot of it is just having more staff, having those dedicated spaces, and giving that time to work. Things don't happen immediately. You have to give it time, see how it works, and look into it.
I would also just add, if you can hear me, that discomfort is not the same as being unsafe. And so seeing people using drugs, being around people who are intoxicated is not inherently an issue of safety. So we also need to think about when we're setting up this binary or this potential tension, what's really at stake in that tension. And we would argue, well, of course, exposures to sharps and things like that are real hazards. So much of what we're talking about is actually the discomfort of being witness to the abandonment of people in our community. And so we think it's really important to reframe that question and those terms when we think about safety and what it actually means to have kids in those spaces amongst people who also use drugs.
Okay, are there any other questions for the delegates? Come aboard. Allison, if you have anything, just okay. Okay, I think that's it for questions. Thank you, Francis. Thank you, Kendra.
Thank you.
So that is the end of the delegations, but if you all want to stick around, we'll be dealing with this matter very shortly. So it's actually next up on the agenda as well if you all want to stick around. So the next item we have here is 1.6, library card pilot presentation. I will call on Paul and Chad to do the presentation.
Thank you very much, Board Chair, and thanks everyone for sharing your thoughts on this. I think we're all in agreement, I believe, that we want the Hamilton Public Library and other libraries to be accessible to everyone. And that is something that we've been committed to and that we remain committed to. We just experienced a very, very harsh winter that we can talk about some of the things that we experienced, but the level of prices got us to have to alert the board to the chunk potential need to close. And, and I think what we need to be remembering here, and we're going to provide some clarity because I think some of the proposals are mixed, or some of the discussion is to a certain extent not really accurately describing what we're intending to do or what we're doing. However, so the library, the issue here is not people that have the drug addiction. They're welcome in the library. The issue is the distribution and the consumption of drugs within the library. And so we have experienced that this has happened before. People coming to the library and basically, distributing, selling fentanyl, or, and I should say, the current substances, whatever they are. This is happening on a daily basis. And I can tell you during the cold winter this month, we have sensors in our washrooms. We had all our sensors going off where people were in all the washrooms actually consuming drugs. We could talk about the number of overdoses that we've experienced. And I also alerted the board to the fact that more often we have to clean up washrooms and we're finding things. And I think we need to acknowledge that the current drug supply leaves people in a state of intoxication, that they're dropping their drugs. We're finding this in the library. And so, we have a responsibility to make sure that no one that comes into the library is exposed to, a dangerous substance. So before we talk about proposal, just the idea of advocacy, and I think it's very clear from our plan that we do support advocacy. And we are looking at coming back next month with a plan for the board to work on advocacy. I think the union president said it clearly that in a certain extent we're experiencing, we're feeling the pressure of the failure of action on other levels of government that are impacting us, and they're impacting libraries all over the country. So we agree on that. We've seen the last few years, and really started in 23 and then accelerated in 24, 25, 26, where we have an empty children's department often. And this winter in particular, the number of drug overdoses. And so we have actually, if you remember back in November, we sent out a message and tried to clarify that we were securing our washrooms and putting different steps. And we were trying to get a clear message. Please don't consume drugs in the library. Obviously, that wasn't very successful because we proceeded to have a few months of, hundreds of incidents and regular administering naloxone, calling paramedics. I think we're one of the probably most busy places for paramedics. So this is all happening this winter. So all we're saying is that we sit here as a library coping with these challenges. There's youth in our community and families and people that have resources can drive to any other branch. When we're talking about the downtown library, many people don't have a lot of resources and they rely on this place. And so how much longer are we going to have families not comfortable bringing their children into the library because of what they see? And you may say that the risk it's more a mention of it's just uncomfortable. Well, I can understand why parents would not want to bring their children into a place where you're seeing people overdosing. When we secure the washrooms, we've had people smoking in the living room adjacent to the washroom. This is something that has been really reached a crisis level this winter. So what we are proposing, and we're open to ideas. If you remember, and certainly we have been engaging with ideas and action going back to having a social worker back in 2014. And throughout these years, we now have a peer support worker. We now have community connectors. When we talk about the library card, so So here's our goal, and I think we would share this. You may disagree with some of the methods, and you know, if there's a better way, and we're not trying to, what we're trying to do is make this library safe from drug distribution and drug consumption inside the place. And I don't know about you, but I don't think I would want my child going into a washroom where someone's smoking fentanyl. And I think we remember there's other things that go on in the washrooms that are not appropriate for a community space. So everyone is welcome central or into the library, provided they're willing to identify themselves and take accountability for their actions. And so I don't think I have to go on about the impact that this has had. So I could also go on about all the measures that we put in place. You know, and I think one thing that is being said is that the library is, you know, cutting security contracting. Yes, and I think we've all agreed that's an intentional strategy to pit the resources to the the peer support workers, better, more successful interventions, the community connectors. So that's the reality we're facing. We put all these measures in place. Now, you know, we talk about the impact of this proposed policy. I just want to remind everyone that if we go back to a little bit of history, back in 2010, this library reopened after its renovation with the farmers market. And at the time, starting around 2011, 2012, 2013, we started to see a lot of serious incidents at the Central Library. And a lot of it was happening on the computers. And what was happening is people were communicating drug sales, people were doing other things, looking at pornography, etc. And they were using, we would give anyone an a visitor card. So what we did was we first created a low barrier card, and maybe Chad's going to talk about those details. So anyone could come in and get a library card. And they can get a library card, they can take out items, they get a prefix and everything. We've had this in place since, I think it was 2012, 2013. I've never had a complaint about lack of access to computers. You know, if you talk about, like, there's some characterization that we're, you know, trying to exclude groups. I know in 2024, this library was full of refugees from different parts of the world who were here, and they were saying, thank you very much for the services you're providing. So all the newcomer groups were an active member of HIPC. We work with all the newcomer groups, and they in fact bring newcomers to the library to get a library card, because it's a piece of ID that often is the last step to getting a OHIT card. You need something with a signature on it. So to sort of suggest that somehow people with, you know, living in poverty or newcomers don't have access to a card, that's simply not the case. I think what we found at the time is that when we have people at least acknowledging that I'm responsible for my activity, we saw a significant decline in problems to this day, and we've never had a complaint. So you know, basically, when we first did it, someone came in and they gave their court summons. Can I get your library card? Great, here's your library card. And a lot of people found out that they didn't know that they could get a library card. They signed up, and now they're able to get some free prints and take up 500, do all this. So you know, when I say to get a library card, we accept anyone that comes in our doors. And you know, so anyone that says I live or work or go to school here, we'll give you a library card. We have two levels: one that requires government ID, one that doesn't. And so that has worked very long and has been, in a sense, barrier-free for 13 years. I don't recall anyone complaining that we were somehow denying access to computer use. So that's the kind of the principle what came up with SNL. That's the idea that we thought might be an alternative. And if you see the way and I'll let Chad talk about that. So we're here to, if there's solutions short of this, we're certainly open to them. I think the reality is, I think the families that are their children are being denied access to the library. How many more years are we going to let that go on? And we can talk theoretically. I'm talking. I see it. We see it. We've seen it for the last couple of years, and it's getting worse. People are only 4 months. How many more years are we going to be depriving library access? And I just make one other point, which is that when we, one of the things that this has caused a lot of people to comment on is people in recovery are no longer safe in the library. They have to avoid Central because of the pressure of access to drugs and their former peers that are using drugs, that it's not safe for them to come into the Central Library. So just to be clear, the intention here is not to deny anyone access. The intention here is to ensure that people aren't coming into HPL distributing dangerous substances which lead into consumption in the library that is actually preventing us from functioning as a public library and is deterring a lot of people from coming in. I'll pass it on to Chad to maybe just.
Thanks, Paul. Good evening, everybody. My name is Chad Roblich. I'm the Director of Facilities and Sustainability. Safe and secure environments fall under my portfolio, as well as I'm the current Acting Director of Central Library. I'd like to
Go closer to your mouth, chat.
Absolutely, Councillor. How's that?
Yeah.
I first want to acknowledge and thank our membership and our union to be here. Lisa, you did a great job advocating. It's nice to see the support we have in the room. I'm a fan of peaceful protest, and I strongly believe that protest like this is what spawns ingenuity and creativity and discussion. Without protest, without information, without gatherings such as the one we're having, huge advancements in health and safety and labor relations, all the different advocacies and all the different approaches that have happened over time, I don't think they would be. So I agree with everything that's being said. I firmly believe that there's a middle ground that needs to be found, and I believe that just bringing this discussion to the forefront, I believe we're going to get the solutions that we need and provide an equitable solution that meets everybody's goals and objectives. I'm here to walk through this proposed plan right now as we've prepared it. And as Paul mentioned, it's one of several measures over the past several years that we have introduced in order to try to provide a safe and secure environment for our community, for our teams, and for the guests visiting our library. Many of the things talked about this evening, we can quickly summarize in our notes, but they've taken months of work, and there's a lot of context around a lot of these things. I think everybody in our community understands the effort that the library's put forward, and it's been said many times tonight that we're not in this position because of something the library did, but right now we have some action to do. The idea is to have, if we could go to the next slide, the idea is to have a greeter stationed at the interior entrance across from the information desk that will speak with our members as they come in and take a look to see if a library card is had or needed. Light barriers in the form of stanchions. Anybody coming through the front today saw those stanchions that would run from the north side of the library to the south side of the library with the opening around the stairs. This would allow free access to the computer use, to maintain access to our social workers, as well as to our information desk, and provide access to and fro from the shopping center and back onto York Boulevard. Security and community connectors will be nearby to support the conversations, card registration, and de-escalation. Our goal is to ensure everybody can get a library card and everybody has access to a library card. Managers and leadership will provide on-site support and constant on-site support for the first couple of weeks so we can ensure that our team is not running into any challenges and we can respond to any challenges that arise as they need to be. As I mentioned, free movement between those entrances, social work access, and the idea is to pilot this for a couple months. Evaluate a series of data points that we've deemed as areas that we can look at to see if we've had success. Everybody, including the membership that's here with us today and our board and our staff and our senior leadership team could tell you that this isn't about seeing uncomfortable situations. I respect and I do understand where that statement comes from because there is a lot of that in our society. It really is the safety around walking into a plume of smoke into a washroom unexpectedly, or having to administer Narcan to somebody who isn't having vital signs on the floor. And you know, a big piece I want to acknowledge and publicly support at Central Library, our staff. We utilize a third-party security company. An organization that provides these security services, and these guards are the ones who walk into these situations day in and day out to bring to life the folks who aren't showing vital signs and to try to de-escalate on site now with some community connectors and some social services. Our idea is to test this new process, to see if it's successful, to understand if the data points, if we're seeing a decrease in the lock zone, if we're seeing a decrease in overdose, to see if we're seeing a decrease in emergency medical calls, in order for us to evaluate to see if this is something that could work moving forward. The next slide outlines the type of membership that HPL has and promotes. And our Inspire card is a straightforward registration that provides that you only need a piece of ID, essentially a document with your name on it that can be had through any means that's available, from a shelter to a landlord, a piece of mail, all of the various name identification options to be able to deliver a card in order for you to come in and partake in any of the library space outside of the ones that I mentioned earlier. That's it at a high level. I could get into further details if there are some questions around the process that's being proposed. We'll see you.
Okay, thanks, Chad. This item is going to come up later for the vote later on in the evening, but I do want to provide the opportunity for members to ask questions. We'll keep it at one speaking opportunity though for now before we move on to the report. So if anybody has questions, Councillor Crouch, I can see your hand.
Thanks. I think a couple pieces of information I'm looking for. Not looking for a debate. I don't think anyone thinks the library is responsible for what's happening in our society. No one thinks that. Peer support workers, how long have the peer support workers been there?
Since last year, that was something we started. Sorry.
About 14 months.
Yeah.
Okay. And community connectors?
I believe we're about a month in.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. Based on your observations and the reporting that we've received at the board to date, a lot of that reporting is on a period that's not today. It's not happening when we're having warmer weather as warmer weather increases in terms of data and statistics that we have in front of us. Have you seen a change in the weather pattern and the change in what's happening? Has that been impacted by you removing the library as an emergency warming center? Like, can you speak to that point of it here in terms of, have you seen a change of late? Have you seen a change related to weather? Have you seen a change related to us, the emergency status being removed?
Thank you, Councillor. Yes. When the weather does get warmer, we see an instant change in our environment. Our washrooms aren't as used as often for consumption.
Okay, thanks for that. So I want to just focus on one more thing, and then I'm going to leave it there because I'll make my comments when we come to the actual motion itself and spend my time talking at that time. I think one thing you said, Paul, and you said it a number of times when you were speaking, was the word complaints, or the word complain, You talked about this idea of people complaining, right? Which I think, as a counselor, I can tell you, people have complained to me before. I receive complaints on a regular basis, right? Which is fine. I'm happy to get those complaints from residents, and then you respond to issues, and if it's a policy issue, you raise it through a policy manner. But I guess I want to say is, are you hearing from people with positive comments? Because I'm hearing the same thing. And so I'm wondering, what you're hearing about. I'm hearing from some families, some parents with kids who have lots of positive things to say about our library experience. And so I'm trying to understand the scope, right? I understand that maybe some of the complaints you're hearing are severe in terms of their severity. There's people are saying this is really causing me alarm. That's like how the Stats Canada does police stats, right? They have here the number of incidents that occur, and then here's the severity of the incidents that occur, right? So I imagine you're getting complaints that are maybe more severe, and that's what you're saying is rising, or are you getting a lot more complaints from people than you are positive feedback? I'm trying to understand the anecdotal nature of your comment.
I if I could just answer, we are getting more complaints, not that people are necessarily filling out a complaint form and submitting them. They're saying, I just walked by someone and they're, I'm passing through, toxic smoke and I'm not sure what it is. I think what we've, just in terms of the discussion we're having right now and just talking to people with the greeter, we've been getting a lot more positive comments. There have been, and I would acknowledge there have been a few people that are confused or not happy. By and large, most people are quite pleased with this. And I think
You mean with the policy?
with the proposed changes, and I've heard things like, oh, I could bring my child back here. And now you can, I'm just telling you what people are saying. I think one thing that people need to acknowledge, we didn't try to ask for people that are upset about what's going on, are not using the library. And I think the biggest impact is people not coming here. And you can see that every day when you go into the children's department compared to what it used to be. So that is a definite result of what's currently going on in people. But we didn't want to sort of ask people to, well, how do you think about us putting in new restrictions to try to remove the drug consumption from the library? And because we know sometimes, there's can be a lot of very nasty things. We're not trying to get anyone, I think we all agree that there's a lot of people that are traumatized, that have drug problems, that, the last thing they need is someone, adding to their trauma. I think what we're saying is, if we keep having people use in the library and people can distribute drugs in the library, that is preventing us from doing our function as a library. And I think it's very hard to not see that there's been a lot of damage already done. And I guess, that's would be my answer. And, we can disagree on points, but I think it's hard not to conclude that there is a visible impact, there is a real impact on our ability to engage people.
Yeah, just because you brought it up, I'll just briefly follow up with one question. Just that I know that the issue of the children's section with respect to having use has been an issue for a number of years now, probably 5 or 6 years it's been declining. Obviously, COVID had a strong impact on that. And then when libraries were in a position to be more open in 2022 and following, I know one of the very first things we talked about when I was onto the board or even before then was issues in the children's area and the lack of use there, even at times when perhaps there weren't issues. The point is people aren't coming to the library's children's section as much as they were anymore, and there's a bunch of reasons for that. I'm not discounting that one of the reasons is related to what you're raising, but I just want to also highlight that this has been an issue for a while now. So that's it for me. I'll save my comments for later.
Yeah.
Kojo, go ahead, please.
I just wanted to know if it's possible, if we're going to have a chance to ask more questions when we get to 8.1. Yes?
Yes, we will.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, Councilman Begin.
Yeah, thanks. Paul or Chad, appreciate your remarks, but they make a couple of questions for me. I think when you've got something this complex, we need to do everything we can to be very clear about what we're talking about. So, but this, and I'm not anxious to embrace the evil of two lessors. Talk about the two options, and including a hearing for are there other strategies, other things that can be done. I suspect there are. Maybe it's a bit like climate change. Everybody wants to fight it, but they're not sure how to do it. And also a lot of confusion. So specifically, two questions, and like Councillor French, I'll make some comments later. But let's be clear: who does this policy? What people or group of people are we being intentionally wanting to exclude?
I think from our experience, really the biggest group we're trying to deter from coming to the library is people that are actively distributing drugs. And that's been a problem for some time. And it's certainly accelerated quite seriously this year. And so we have, and the Hamilton police are working with us. We've had a number of people arrested for distribution of drugs. That's very hard to, for people to prosecute. But the problem with that is the drugs are coming in here, and then they're distributing it in here, and then we have, the smoke coming out of all the washrooms. And we're not talking about like this is, if we think, overdose, we might be used to one a week. When you're talking about some days, a couple times a day, if not more, every day. And then we see, and I think one thing we've been saying, which we need to acknowledge, the state of York Boulevard, that's another reason why people won't come in, is if they see people, frankly, smoking fentanyl or whatever I don't know what they're smoking, their substances, in front of the library by the entrance. We keep asking people to move, and but it's been a regular occurrence this winter. And I think one thing I would observe, which is something that others are experiencing, is right now there's an open use that we've never seen before. And would you think that if you secure the washroom and you then have someone consuming, right in the open in the library, and that's happened a number of times. So that's the situation we're in. And so you have people trying to use the library. And I think one of the things that prompted us on this was we're in a serious crisis. The weather's warmer now, so things are naturally going to get better. When it was minus 30 degrees outside, we weren't going to say people get out of here, okay? But they were overdosing, coming back in, overdosing again. Like this is happening all the time. Meanwhile, our regular, and many people that use the central library don't have a lot of resources. They're asking, please don't close the library. They don't want us to close the library. So, and we agree with that. So we don't want to close the library. But others have had to because of the level of crisis. So if you understand the logic of the proposal, is to do a test at a time to see if this is a reasonable measure that would improve. So if next, and I think, Lisa said it right, next winter, actually, we might be in a position where it would be much better that we implement a measure for a month before we end up basically, having an entrenched problem that is going to take months to resolve. And so, you don't know how, we're responsible for the health and safety of everyone in the library. people are distributing drugs. You know, this is a serious problem. And we've tried everything. And you know, people can say, like, I do agree, the greeter, and that's part of what we're trying to do. But so you know, again, I guess personally as chief librarian, I think we all often every winter, and especially since 2023, as soon as we come into winter, there's a heightened anxiety. Okay, how much are we going to have to endure this winter? And that's why in 23, 24, we implemented the peer support worker, the peer, like the other measures. Then we find ourselves in 2026 with orders of magnitude worse level crisis within our spaces. And this is after all the other measures. I've been engaged with the Canadian Urban Library Council Self and Security Committee. Well, a lot of libraries are adopting things we did 10 years ago. And, you know, maybe the thing is because we live in a gritty downtown, you know, we have a history of, you know, Hamilton not being, you know, the most genteel place, I guess, as you want to say. And that's fine. This is our home. But we need to be able to adapt to the circumstances. And I think that's where we're struggling, where we put all these measures in place, and yet we're still having, to be honest, you know, like a real failure of collective action. So we have people consuming, you know, on a regular basis. And so I think the distinction is we don't want people consuming or distributing drugs in the library. We're not stopping anyone that has an addiction from coming into the library. But what are the impacts of allowing a small number of people to openly consume and distribute drugs in the library to everyone else? And you know, we have a responsibility to do what we can, you know, to serve our community.
So, thanks, Paul. We're all seeking a richer understanding.
Right.
We don't want to add a deeper darkness too, as Martin Luther King would say, to a night already devoid of stars, right? With that having been said, a supplemental, because I was impressed earlier when you were talking about how intentional the library is about inviting people in and memberships available to anyone. I'm assuming, so I guess to be crystal clear, you know, if that is the case and someone comes, you know, is somebody going to discern people who are eligible for a card to come in? That's one of the measures of success I'm just sort of getting at.
Sure, and I think what the point of the check is, and it's not that we're tracking people's information or like, what we're doing is we're running a test to see if they're on the current active suspended list. So that, because right now we're in a situation, and it's hard in this building, it's very big. So we have a problem where people are suspended from the library for creating whole number of problems, different reasons, and then they come back in. And, you know, short of, we try to de-escalate the situation to get people out safely. But then, you know, so they're, I guess, to a certain extent, just ignoring that ability. So I think what we're hoping to do actually is especially deter people from bringing and distributing drugs to the library. And, you know, that's kind of a low bar, but it's actually not where we are right now.
So I'm assuming from what is it safe for me to assume, is if I'm going to play that the those on the suspended list would not likely be the people, because they're on the suspended list, that would get a library card to come in. So
the thing is, I think the hope is that, and that's what our experience has been on the computers, that people will choose not to distribute drugs or I think if you know anything about, you know, sort of people involved in illegal activity, they are generally trying to stay under the radar. And we're now in a position where they can come in and distribute, and you know, we can try to get them removed, but there's someone else in there a couple hours later doing the same thing.
So that I guess always needs Chad and you could answer. We got a suspended list, and I'm assuming there's a rationale for those on the list. Presumably a desire not to expedite their access to the library. How would that be enforced? That's my final question. Slater.
Thank you, Counselor. To be clear, you're asking how it will be enforced. If somebody comes up and a suspension shows up on the iPad that they're suspended, how will that be enforced?
And maybe a twist on it, are they only folk that goes on the suspended list, or about to be on the suspended list who will not be current?
That's the idea. The idea is to, if somebody, and our suspension process is very thorough, and it involves a lot of steps and a lot of ability for the member to a lot of progressive steps to ensure suspension is the last option. So the idea would be if the member shows up as suspended, the greeter would ask a member to cease security, that they're currently listed as suspended. If they could cease security, have security close by, have the discussion with the member about the reason for the suspension. A lot of times they may forget, or that there may be a discrepancy with the ID. They may feel that it's been falsely put on them. Our security team will work through that, and our security team will walk the member through that process. And if the member is a suspended member, they'd be asked to leave or appeal and have a reinstatement meeting to get off of that suspension list.
Thanks. You've stimulated some new questions, but I'm not going to.
I think there's still time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Repeating. Additionally, Jen, go ahead.
This is a quick logistical question. When we see any refill library cards, start putting the data at the sorry, just asking if we are scanning the library cards, are we deleting that data
Yes.
at the end of the day?
Yes. The mechanism that will identify whether a member is suspended or not just goes against an active suspension list, and there's no tracking of information, names, anything like that. What we would like to do is ask our greeters to take note of people who do come in. Just our traffic counters will do that, as well as anybody who was turned away, so we can understand what those numbers look like and the impacts are like. Just numbers, no information from the membership card at all.
Thank you. Just wanted to comment and say thank you to Paul and Chad for preparing that presentation. This was something we specifically asked for, to give an opportunity to walk through what the process will actually look like. Knowing that there may be questions about that, so I really appreciate the diagram you all have prepared to show what it'll look like, and the additional information you gave about the low barrier pass. I think that's very helpful to know that we're really trying to still reach out to people as much as possible and allow that access and manage restrictions as much as we can. So I really appreciate that. I just wanted to know, based on the week or the couple days that you've had that set up downstairs, I don't know if a lot of you folks have been downstairs to the first floor yet, where it's already sort of set up, just to give people an idea of what it'll look like. There's greeters already stationed there to give folks information as they come in. Chad or Paul or any of the other SLMC members, have you heard from the greeters? What are the kinds of questions you're getting? Is there any feedback that you think we should know at this point? What's kind of the sentiment for people coming in?
Yeah, the feedback I've received so far from the manager of Central Information Services, as well as just standing around listening to some of the conversations, there's a lot of questions. There's a lot of misunderstandings out there. I think people have read maybe captions in the media statements and not necessarily read through some of the statements thoroughly. Our team's doing an amazing job providing accurate information and outlining those steps. I think if there's a mixed reaction, we're seeing a group of folks who are appreciative of taking some sort of action, understanding that we're in a difficult position, and then there are folks who are clearly outlining their disapproval with the process.
Thanks. Are there any other questions? Lynn, yeah, go ahead. But that's okay.
Thanks, Chad. Can you talk a little bit about how the greeters are greeting people as they come in? Is there a script, and what kind of support do they have in place?
Thanks, Lynn. The greeters were provided with a document with processes, FAQs, ideas for a script. We have an opportunity to speak with every single member that walks in the door, and we have an opportunity to connect, which is a valuable opportunity, and we certainly don't want to take that for granted. So we're working consistently with the staff, and we're taking feedback, and we're taking concerns seriously. We're monitoring, and we're trying to be agile in the approach. So we've provided that. We've laid out a very detailed leadership plan for support, actively maintaining presence downstairs, increased the ability to have security respond to any issues that arise, as well as SLT actively monitoring the situation.
Okay. I don't see any other questions, so I'll move on. Thank you again for the presentation. We have the acceptance of the agenda, but I do want to move item 8.1 to the beginning so that we may vote on that motion, acknowledging we have a lot of folks who have been waiting for that conversation to take place. So if everybody's okay with it, I'm going to suggest moving 8.1 to the beginning of the agenda as the next item. Can I have a seconder? Nick? Okay, can we call a vote on that? All in favor of moving that in the agenda? Okay, perfect. So we will move right along to 8.1 is now becoming 2.1. And we'll get started. I think Paul and Chad have already spoken about it, and it's pretty clear in the agenda what the pilot project is. So we move into questions, but I understand that Carly, you had an amendment you want to put on the floor first. So please go ahead and speak to your amendment.
Yeah, thank you. And I believe Erica has that queued up and ready here. So I would like to suggest that we consider adding a third recommendation on item 8.1, Enabling Improving Safety at Social Staff, that we consider adding the board direct staff to engage with partner organizations and interested parties to hear how the temporary library changes are impacting library members, and that staff monitor and report on usage metrics and incidents, and that staff also come forward at the June meeting with any changes planned based on that monitoring and engagement. So June being chosen, noting that would be the meeting after the, if passed, the temporary measures.
Okay, do I have a seconder for that amendment? Nick? Okay, perfect. Any discussion on the amendment? Any questions on that? Yeah, Councilor McBean, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. This is one of the meetings I read through the whole agenda.
Yay!
I confess, I don't always cover every item on the agenda, but I noted with some amazement. I actually went back and counted them. There are 169 partners, community partners with the Y. So if the amendment is to consult with our partners, who's going to determine what partners we're going to consult with?
Thanks. The intention is for us to come out with a report next month. And so I think that would be both a combination of inviting people that we already work with and seeing if there's others that want to engage in that conversation. So, we're going to be looking for feedback from them. We've also had offers from the city manager and the mayor to get, the government relations of the city to support us and work in conjunction with us, as we also have sector partners, Federation of Ontario Public Libraries, Ontario Library Association. So the intention would be to engage as many. I think, we want to really understand both the impacts of what we're proposing, and then also, as we're advocating, what are the broader impacts of the lack of supports for people, suffering from addictions currently.
So, thanks. So will the letter go out to all the partners saying we've taken this decision to consult and to seek as much and as broad an equity as possible, and open that up?
Yes, and we haven't specifically talked about that. There may be some partners that are,
Yeah, of course.
interested, but certainly the intention would be to be as expansive as possible.
Okay, so you mentioned the mayor, the chief of staff, council, and that's really good. Those are partners we need to engage with. But there are a couple of partners, other partners. I know Councilor Crench and I have been advocating, not with a lot of success, I confess, for trying to develop a shared sense of purpose between all levels of government, because the municipalities, when we just went through it with their budget, the tension around just meeting the emerging needs we could identify, let alone additional needs. Somehow, if we're going to do case to cause advocacy, we should also find some way to engage. And I think this came up at the previous meeting too. I don't know whether that's happened or beginning to happen, but with provincial MPPs of all persuasions to get a little bit of giddy up on this shared sense of purpose they always talk about, and we keep begging for it as a council.
Absolutely.
Okay, thanks. I'm done.
There's still time. Okay, I don't see anybody else speak to the amendment, so I just want to add to Carly's statement about the amendment that I am in favor of it, just because I think after seeing all the discourse around this table, which is great, and all the reactions, it's very clear that this is a really important discussion, and I'm really in favor and in support of us then reporting back and talking with our community partners before any final decision is made about how to move forward. So I really support this amendment, and I want to thank you both for moving this forward. Okay, so Councilor Crench, go ahead.
Momentarily.
So close.
It'll happen one day. Would you like to try?
I can throw mine too.
Sorry, is the microphone on?
No. Here, Pam, this one's working.
We're trying, Allison. We're trying.
I got it. I think I got it.
It is.
Yep. Good time's a charm. You better give up.
Thank you, Mayor. It's persist. I want to make sure I understand the amendment because, my eyes don't work well enough to read from here. And so I want to make sure I understand exactly what is being proposed here. Is the amendment that we're not going to put in place this proposal and do consultation? Because your last comment, Duggan, suggested that, so I want to make sure I understand.
No, the amendment, as I understand it, sorry, Carly, I'll let you speak too, but is for us to, following this pilot, do that discussion with the partners and get their thoughts and do a lot of that engagement on that side before anything is final for future. That's my understanding, and that's why we're going to be doing that June report as outlined in this amendment, and that June report will have the results of that engagement with partners as well as the metrics that are collected from this before a final recommendation can be made of how to move forward.
Okay, so then maybe this is an opportunity to actually speak then more broadly on the amendment. So while I'm in support of the amendment in spirit in terms of the idea of us coming back to the community and continuing to engagement, because engagement is iterative. You don't engage once, you go out and you speak to people and you ask them what they think. You come back and tell them what you heard. You ask them if what you heard was right, and then you implement a solution. It's usually the way it works, and usually it takes sometimes 2 or 3 times in between to get that right. So it's not a one-stop activity. So this proposes that we're going to be doing more engagement, and that's a good thing. But where I'd like to see this go is that this is done before the policies amendment. I asked that for a couple of reasons, and I want to give you the reasons why I think we should be changing this amendment or making it so that this work gets done before we do anything here at the library. Take a step. Why? A bunch of things that were said today lead me to that conclusion. Number one, I think we need more consultation based on the fact that we are all hearing different things. For instance, if I listen to what Paul said earlier, he said, I'm hearing a lot of positive feedback from people in the library. I can tell you, with the exception of one person and dozens of people that reached out to me, everyone has been strongly opposed to this. What that tells me is not just that, like, maybe people are comfortable emailing a counselor's office to speak about it, and maybe you're going to hear from different people, is that we haven't asked the question in the right places. We haven't asked the right question in the right spaces, and we haven't asked it at the right time. Also, what I'm hearing is that our community connectors have been in place for a short period of time, so about a month. We don't have an ability to evaluate their success, see if if things will improve with their assistance in this short period of time. I think we need to give them a chance to do their job. I think the better weather is also a reason why we shouldn't be rushing to do this right now. I think the better weather lets us know that things are improving is what I'm hearing from people. And so if things are improving, I don't know that taking this kind of measure makes sense. I think we're also moving ahead as fast as we can, and Paul knows I'm working with the public works staff. There was an allocation of Ward 2 funding to help with the children's area from the first floor to the second floor. That is coming along. Some things have been done. I think we ought to give a chance for that to actually happen and see what the results of that are. If that improves access to people using the second floor space for the children's area, if that somehow is a helpful measure, I don't know. But that's why the funding was dedicated. I think also, really from a broader perspective, I think this introduces more barriers than it creates solutions. I don't think this is a solution to the problem we're all facing, or we're talking about. I also don't really think that there's, with a majority provincial government in place, we're going to get them to budge if we're the only library group that's advocating, if we're asking for only one group. But I think if a group of people in Hamilton all sign into a collective letter, we get that letter to the Premier, we get the help for the Mayor and government relations, that might send a message to the Premier that this city's serious about this issue and about the choices they've made. And again, like I've said before, no one thinks the library's to blame for this. I chillingly was present when Minister for Health for the provincial government announced that they were closing safe consumption and safe injection sites in the province of Ontario. Except for the partisan folks at the front who were required to toe the party line, it was booed from a group of mostly conservative city councillors. Hundreds and hundreds of them resoundingly booed when she announced this, because everyone realizes what the provincial government's doing is completely cruel and inhumane. So we understand that we're not causing this problem, but that's where the center of the issue lies. Instead of pitting ourselves against one another, which I think is exactly what the provincial government is doing here, exactly what these policies are designed to do, is to pit people in this room against one another. That's the whole plan. It's been working really, really well. And I think it's unfortunate and it's a big problem. I think what we should do is pause this until we've had a chance to talk to people and put out a broad call. There's people in this room right now who I know and I'm seeing who all want to contribute to this discussion, people who do this professional work day in and day out, who may have some solutions to offer that we don't have in front of us. And I don't disagree that the library has been in a crisis position and there's difficult things happening in the library. We want to have everyone have access to our library. No one disputes that. I just don't think this is the right measure. I don't think it's a solution. And so I'm urging the board to amend this motion so that we don't put this pilot in place until we've done the consultation with the community we need to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor French, for your comments. Allison, I do see your hand, and Dana, I did see your hand as well, but I just want to clarify, Councillor, are you suggesting to amend this amendment to say that staff engage with partner organizations and that staff monitor that prior to, basically amend this amendment to say that this will all happen prior to piloting this project?
Yes.
Is that your amendment to the amendment?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Erica, I'm not sure if you got all that or if you can make that clear on here. And I will get to you, Allison and Dana, as well, but I do need to do a vote on the amendment to the amendment. Are you guys speaking to the amendment that Councillor French is proposing?
Code is in a second.
Tangentially.
Oh, wait, you need to, sorry. No. Closure. Okay, thank you. I can't see all of it. Dana, Allison, did you want to speak to Councillor French's comments or no? Okay. Dana, do you want to speak to Councillor French's comments?
Just tangentially, I guess.
Okay. Go ahead.
How non-committal was that? So.
Do you want me to?
Microphone on?
No. It's fine. Here.
We'll continue to scroll.
Oh, I see.
Here. It's just very like actually.
I'm concerned that I don't know what I don't know. And I really appreciate all of the information that and really hard work that is being done by absolutely everybody on staff. And I very much appreciate everything that has been shared with us this evening. One of my concerns as it relates to the timing, when we talked earlier about how the change in weather may be alleviating things, is that moving ahead with something like this, even as a pilot, it doesn't actually give us information about the effectiveness of something like this that is intended to be responsive to circumstances when the weather is at its worst. And so I feel like we wouldn't necessarily be able to even rely upon the outcome of that experience. And so in that regard, I think that what Councillor Crouch is suggesting makes sense, just so that we can really feel confident upon what we are making our decisions. And I would very much like some more information about some other possible approaches. Again, these are not solutions. The solutions exist at a level well beyond us. But in the meantime, as we try to find measures, I certainly think that we can do more than one thing at a time, and that we ought to be. But that's my concern of it moving forward with anything now.
So, if there is a desire for the board for us to pause and have further conversations, I'm sure the team would be willing to do that. I just want to remind that there's kind of a couple things that come up during this discussion that I think are relevant. One is that we are responsible for the safety of everyone in this building, and we're about to come to March break, where normally we have an influx of family and children. And I want to, with some reasonable confidence, be sure that the families are not going to walk in and be smelling breathing other people's toxic smoke. And I don't think parents are going to be very tolerant of that. So if we need to go back and talk, further, I think the thing is, and kind of what concerns me, and that's fine. I guess one of the things that has come up in terms of what people are saying is all we're trying to do is try to add another tool to test it, to see if it's something that if we're in a crisis next winter, we could implement it short of closing. Now, if there's something else that's an option, I think if we hear from people that come in this library every day, and people that aren't coming from the library, I think we're going to hear from a lot of residents of the current state is not acceptable. And so the question is, how do we get out of that? Certainly advocacy is one piece. But we need to make sure that we're actually functioning as a library. How many years are we going to allow our children's department to be, and I think one of the things that I kind of frustrating is, a lot of people are saying, oh, you can't do this, it's going to hurt people. We have so many of our newcomers groups are partners with us. And I think if anyone spent any time in this building, one of the strategies that people that are consuming the drugs use to be left alone is they say racist and abusive language to people. This happens multiple times every day. So we've had newcomer groups say, is it safe for us to come into the library because we're going to be subjected to basically verbal abuse? And what can we do? You need to leave. Person is back doing the same thing. So when we talk about who's suffering here, I just think we need to make sure we have a full conversation of actually people that, that are actually using the library. And so, I guess if we need to, have further discussions, I just think that, do we want to go into next winter, again, with an empty children's department and with, like, we can wait, but I do think we need action. Do we have to do it next week? We could certainly defer it and come back and talk, but like damage is being done to the Hamilton Public Library, to our ability to engage residents right now, and it's going to take time to people to restore faith in coming back to Central, and so do we want to just wait for our advocacy to bear fruit? I don't think the residents would appreciate us not trying to do everything in our power to create a safe library for the community. And I think one of the things is, one of the reasons why we want to do a pilot is, all the sort of the worst case scenarios that people are describing. What if they don't happen? Certainly our experience with the access card has not been one of exclusion. It's been one of inclusion for many years. And so what if it works? I guess, is it worth seeing if there's another tool? So, like, I think we're all seeing, and I think this is kind of what we need to acknowledge. There's some people here, that, and what I've heard from people is there's some people that actually don't support measures to reduce drug use in the library. And so, that's the first question. Why people are saying that? Does anyone, it's being laughed at. Well, what other proposals can we have to stop people from using drugs in the library?
Sorry, I'm just gonna stop for 1 second. Please, everybody who's in here, we were very respectful during the delegations to not speak, so I would ask that while members or staff are speaking, please remain respectful and give us your full attention, please.
If you think that doesn't insisting to me,
that we're on here, right, which is what we're debating, I think, and it's supposed to vote on, is it says June 11th, correct?
It says June
The June meeting,
2026, yeah.
The June meeting, right? So that was what I'm amending, is
Yes.
that we would come back at the June meeting, not next winter.
Yes.
I also think it's really important, just from a procedural perspective, there's an amendment to an amendment on the floor where members of the board are debating an amendment. That's what we're supposed to be doing right now, strictly.
Yes.
And so members of the board can debate the amendment and then we should vote on it.
I do believe we should allow people to speak and ask questions on the amendment to the amendment. So I did see Kojo's hand, but I also saw Allison's hand for a while, so.
I think Allison hand was up first. So
Allison, do you want to speak to Councillor Crutch's amendment about the June 2026 date?
So actually can't see the amendment on my screen, so I don't know what it's currently saying.
It's not up yet.
So my understanding of Councillor Crutch's amendment though was to change to not implement any pilot until we have done these changes. That's correct. Yes. Okay. So this is what I'm seeing here. So yes, I do want to speak to this amendment. If that's okay.
Yes, please go ahead.
Excuse me. So I totally appreciate the need for further consultation, stakeholder engagement, solutions, considerations, etc., etc. I hear that people from our community are speaking out and say this is not something that they necessarily support. However, I think continuing to push this proposed action to a further date after even more consultation, I don't know how that's going to serve us given our immediate needs, which, the fact is the library is struggling to function as a library. Our staff are not safe. Our patrons are not safe. When I say patrons, I am including those individuals who are vulnerable, who are racialized, who are unhoused, who are maybe using drugs themselves. We're not talking about the people as the problem. The problem is the behavior of individuals using drugs in the library.
we've had this conversation for some time now at this board, and I never thought that we would get to this point where it was this bad, but it is this bad now. But I think we have to try something. I think we can't come to this. We've discussed this as an option at the board thoughtfully and carefully. We understand that to some individuals this seems like an extreme step, but it doesn't necessarily need to be, in the sense of we are implementing a barrier, but the way in which we construct that barrier doesn't necessarily have to keep everybody out. It can be implemented in a thoughtful and considerate way that does include people, that tries to find solutions for those individuals who want to use the library for what it's intended for. So, yeah, and then we'll after this vote though, Gagan, we'll go back to you. If this amendment doesn't pass, then we'll go back to the original, is that correct?
Yes, just procedurally, so everybody knows, if this amendment passes, then we'll be voting on the amended amendment, and then the full motion. If it doesn't pass, then we'll go back to the original motion that Carly had put on the floor, just procedurally.
Okay, because I had a comment about the original amendment, but I'll wait to see what happens. Thanks.
Oh,
Thanks, Gagan.
Cool, yeah. Kojo, did you have your hand up for Councillor Petra's amendment?
Yes.
Okay, please go ahead.
Yeah, I'm in full support of it. I want to take us back to October 2023, and it was Paul that gave us a presentation. And in that presentation, he talked about this term called convivencia, right? Living in confluence or conviviality. And in that, in his presentation, it says here, conviviality, which tends to infer happy and fun forms of togetherness, is actually includes the emphasis on practice, effort, negotiation, and achievement. A sense of rubbing along that includes not just being happy together, but negotiating, friction, and sometimes conflict. At that meeting, we were all happy that this is what HPL stands for, right? And so now, if we have this complex challenge that we know it has nothing to do with anything that we have actually done, but is government and what have you, this is the time for us to be convivial with everybody. Let's meet with people. Let's talk with people. Let's iron out that friction, right? Let's do that so that we can be the standard of what we want the world to be, where everybody is free to be in public, right? I think that is what we're just asking. Nobody is saying that there's no crisis. We see it. I come here, we all come here. We see it. But we also have to think about, if we want to create that world, we have to also do that work. Since I've been on the board, we've never had, look at how many people are here. We've never had this many people here. So people are concerned. We saw all the emails. Let's talk to folks. Let's go back to the drawing board. Let's do the multiple things that we need to do. Let's do the advocacy. We have 2 councillors here that have always been on our side. Let's push them. Let's send an email to the mayor. Let's send emails to people. And let's get our community to also send those things. This is a time for us to put in action what we want to see in this world. So I think for me, that's my comments around the amendment, and I hope we can all support the amendment so that we can do that work of living in conviviality together.
Thank you, Kojo. Dana, did you have a question? Procedurally?
It's a procedural question, so perhaps let me
Okay.
go ahead.
Okay, Carly, I think your hand was up. Sorry.
And maybe this borders on a procedural question as well. In looking at the amendment to the amendment, it seems to be sort of contradictory to the other recommendations. In that the first recommendation says that the board approves the plan, and then the third amendment, this amendment says that we don't approve the plan until this has happened. And so I suppose I'm not in favor of the amendment to the amendment because I feel that if we, I guess what I'm saying is if we feel this, then we vote the recommendation no.
Yes. Nick.
I am not comfortable deferring this for another month and supporting the motion of Councillor Kretsch. I see the risk as being now. I see a risk as being here today. And I am not comfortable putting that off for a month and waiting for an incident to manifest itself in the meantime. If something happens to a patron in that month while we have deferred, that will be on us. We could have prevented that incident and chose not to. And I cannot support the good council of Wisdom.
Thank you, Nick. Dana, do you want to ask your procedural question now or? Okay.
It's teamwork. It is somewhat related to what Carly spoke to, insofar as what was going to be coming before us was that we endorse the plan, and I'm just trying to understand how this amended. So sa case, the question is, is that no longer the question whether you endorse?
My thoughts, and maybe Paul as the secretary can speak to this, is that we're speaking just to this specific amendment at this time. So if we vote in favor of that, this changes this recommendation, we have to amend the recommendation A as well to basically take the dates out. So there would need to be an amendment to that motion as well. So we have to do it motion by motion though. So we would have to amend that one as well. Does that clarify for the board procedurally? Did I get it wrong, Counselor? Oh no.
No, but this doesn't really, let's be really clear here and make this simple. I don't care if we play hopscotch this or we skip it. It doesn't really matter how we do this. Like, what I'm trying to do is real simple. I want to slow down and have more consultation. I don't have to amend this amendment to do that. I can bring a motion outside this amendment, whatever makes it easier for people. My goal is going to be to try and stop us from having a meeting they do consultation. That's the goal. So let's not make this difficult for ourselves procedurally. I can withdraw the amendment to the amendment and then just wait till we have this and then bring it later if it's easier. But we all know what I'm trying to do here, so we can just vote on any time we want.
Okay, so we will do that, but are you withdrawing your amendment then? I'm so sorry. Sorry, Councilor. I'll wait until we're
I had to ask, sorry, now it's going to be not going again.
I've got it.
Yeah, I had to ask when I was taking a sip of water. No, I'm not going to unless it makes a point. I'm just saying that this vote is, I'm just making it plain what we're voting on.
Yeah.
Procedurally, we don't have to go through gymnastics. If this vote fails, then things will come as a result of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Councilor. Sorry, I won't call on you while you're drinking your water again. Councilor McPeakin, do you have a question on this amendment? Amendments to the amendment? I forgot to have state council.
You're going to get by 30 needs your here.
Good to go.
Oh, good to go.
I already.
I'm torn. And I know I said it was done, but this amendment has a little bit of imagination, additional thinking. So an observation, I was asking some questions about what's the true intent, or is it to try to keep the wrong people out? And I think the answer was pretty clear, yes, and not. I'm okay with that, by the way. Then I asked about the suspension list. It was told that the list of suspended people is to not see them going into doing what we believe they should be doing. And I want to juxtapose that to some of the creative entrepreneurial thinking that the presenters made. I think what I heard there was the idea of a greeter, proactive, I'm assuming with some semblance of knowledge about who's been suspended so that their entry to the library wouldn't be advanced. Assuming what people are suspended there's somebody that monitors that, or could be somebody that monitors that. That was a good idea. Having management particularly to the March break staff there who may provide supplemental information if you don't know everybody who's suspended. So the idea of embracing the motion that calls for the creating a collective of ideas, and in the context of a case-to-cause advocacy, let's face it, the bottom line here is we need to convince a level of government that we prefer safe injection sites rather than unsafe sites. We don't want to drive families and kids back into the parks in our community with all the stuff that it took council. We know a little bit about advocacy. It took about 2 years to sort out the encampment protocol around a table that collectively wanted to find answers. And I'm no stranger to advocacy. I know it can be tough and cumbersome and take some time. But I think my good colleague Cratch is onto something here. We can be so intent in looking at the tree rather than the forest. The broader issue is what we've got to deal with. We need to be moving on that, and the best way to do that is, because none of us is as smart as all of us, is to do that collectively, right? So I think we can embrace the motion. This is an announcement. Shut up, Ted, I think that's closing announcement, right? I think we can embrace the motion and the spirit of it, while also embracing the suggestions that have been made that can help us resolve things in the short term. The greeter, the management, extra staffing, monitoring the tree, providing that kind of assurance. I think that's every bit as effective as whatever bureaucracy we're going to go through with people demanding that they get a card so they can come in, and if they're not on the suspended list, we're going to be proactive about letting them in. So those would be my comments, Chair, and I hope they're taken in the spirit which I intend them. Thanks.
Okay, I'm going to just pass over to Paul to speak to the amendment to the amendment.
No, and I just wanted to clarify, when I read that amendment, it now stands, first of all, it says June, that we come back to, but it also says that staff want to report on usage metric, I guess for instance, we're already doing that. Okay, so we're not going to get any data on a pilot if we don't implement the pilot. I think the question is, if you go back to the original motion, which is, to endorse this, I also think that I'm not sure it would be advisable for us to defer this to June, I guess is what I'm saying. So you might want to just, and I think that's the question, either if you want us to proceed now, if not, I think we're going to need to come back next month. And I think there's going to be an expectation that we as a library, and as a library, we work together to present solutions to this that makes their library accessible for the community, just like, say parks and other facilities, okay? In a sense, we're having a lot of people deterred from coming to the library right now. So in action, I guess all I'm saying is there are consequences of that. We should be aware, people are excluded right now because of what's going on. Maybe it's their choice, but they're making choices for what they do with their family, and I think we need to respect that. So, I just think the whole, this is a bit complicated. It's really coming down to, do you want us to proceed now? Or if you don't want us to proceed, then we need to look at other measures. What other measures, okay, can we put in place to provide a safe library? And I guess, I do say, if we come back with other solutions that are less disruptive, okay, will that be supported? And I think it's just, we need to stop drug distribution and drug use in the library, and how we get there, in as inclusive way as possible, is what we're trying to achieve. And I just think that amendment is complicated. Either you want us to proceed now, or if you don't, then we can take direction to come back next month and see what other plans we can maybe reach out to see if anyone else is actually going to step up and help us in this crisis. We've been asking, and I'm not just asking for 2 months, for several years, and we're still waiting. Anyway, so that's kind of the situation we're in. But I really don't think we want to put this off till June. Like, we need to come back if we're not going to proceed now.
Okay, so just in the interest of time, I think it is, we should vote on the amendment. Carly, did you have any more comments on this amendment?
Just want to raise a point of order if I could. I've been on dozens and dozens and dozens of boards and never been put in the position to be debating with staff during a motion. I think we really have to be careful here. It's totally okay if staff have questions and they want to clarify what's going on here, but we've been spending the last 30 minutes in a debate with our staff. I don't want Paul to feel like we're debating with him or that Paul has to justify these. Paul made a presentation, respectfully, which was great, and Paul made some great points. But I think no matter what happens for the rest of the meeting, let's just not get into debates between the board members and staff, because I think it just flies in the face of everything we're trying to do with the library and sets up a pitting against one another that's not helping anyone. So just want to say that, respect everyone's views. We should just get to the vote. Thank you. And just be clear about it, like it's, oh crap, sorry. And to be clear, yeah, I am suggesting to wait till June and come back to the proposal and pass it. The vote is, we can word it however we need to later, right? Like, whatever makes sense. So that I just want to be clear about what the vote is. I think everyone understands what we're voting on.
Okay. I did want everybody else on the board to have an opportunity to speak before I make comments, but I am going to echo Nick's perspective and say I don't think we had time to wait, so I will not be supporting this motion either, but I do think we need to support staff right now, come up with a solution, so I just don't think it's worthwhile to wait till June. So those are my thoughts, but I will call vote. So all in favor of the amendment to the amendment, please raise your hand. 4. Okay, all opposed? 4, 5. I see 6 hands opposed to the amendment, so the amendment fails on a recorded vote of 6-4. So we will move on to the original amendment that Carly had proposed, and that one, if you'll recall, sorry Erica, you may have edited directly in the document, but that one was that we proceed with the timing. That was where Allison had the question. Yes, please go ahead, Allison. But just to remind you, that was where we proceed with the scheduled timing of this pilot, and that we engage with partners, and we asked staff to come back in June with a report about the reactions of partners and the stats from the pilot. So go ahead, Allison.
Thank you. So I see that the proposal is that the pilot would run from March 16th to May 17th. And so here what we're saying is that the staff would come forward at the June meeting with any changes planned. So that would leave us with potentially a month where the pilot is not in operation. So I'm just wondering how that would work if we do, for example, need the pilot to continue. We decide that it makes sense. Would it not sort of make more sense for us to discuss this at the May meeting?
Paul or Chad, I don't know if you want to. My sense is that the reasoning is because it will give them the opportunity to report on what had happened during that time. I'm not sure if it would give them enough time at the May meeting to bring that information back for the board package. So that's my understanding of why we're waiting for that additional month. But maybe Carly, you can speak to the timing that you included in the amendment.
Yeah, because I'm just not seeing any mechanism if we decide, or if it's a parent. When I say we decide, I don't know I scratch that. If it is apparent that the pilot is effective and that it should be continued, I'm just not seeing a mechanism for us to extend that pilot, or for the library to extend that pilot while we are in that period from May to June.
Yeah, thank you. The spirit of this amendment is to ensure that, following all of the excellent delegations that we've heard and the engaged community, that we've convened today, that there would be something in this pilot that really called to do this engagement. The June aspect for me was following. I think our main meeting is the 20th of May, so that we won't leave much time for staff to convene and provide feedback.
Thanks, Carly. Hey, Alton, I see your hand down, so I think that answers the question. Hopefully, does anybody have any other questions or comments on the amendment as presented on the screen? Okay, seeing none, I will call the vote. All in favor? Okay, I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Dana, if your hand up in favor? Okay. 7. Okay. And 1 opposed. Or 2 opposed? Sorry, 2 opposed. Okay, thank you. Let me just say that again. All opposed? Okay, good, thank you. So that amendment carries on a 7-2 vote. Okay, now we'll go back to the main motion, which has the first recommendation, which was that the library board endorse the plan to temporarily implement an entry check-in protocol at Central Library as outlined in the report from March 16th to May 17th. The second recommendation and the third recommendation that just got added as an amendment. So
Voting on the motion as amended.
the motion as amended, yes.
Discussing.
So discussing on the motion as amended. So are there any questions on the main report as amended? Kojo, I saw your hand first.
Yeah, so I have like specific questions. So again, Paul, Chad, thank you for the presentation. So, if the purpose is we do not want folks that are distributing substances and using substances in the library, in this diagram that's here, what about the other spaces? How do you secure those spaces, and how do we secure the entrance of York Boulevard?
Thanks, Kojo. The idea with the proposed approach is that York Boulevard is city property. As you enter the building, you're now into the library. Our staff and our security staff continue to monitor that through FAIR. The approach with the single entry point provides the only access into floors 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, with the exception of the computer space, the social workspace, info commons, as well as some programming rooms for events in the back. So the idea is you would walk through that entry point to access all 5 levels of the library.
Okay. And then for folks that distribute substances and folks that use substances, what if they have library cards?
Folks, as folks are identified and understood with their library cards, a lot of times now when somebody is using in the library, it starts with a discussion. And that discussion is often, we can't do this. You know, we need you to leave for the day. You're welcome back tomorrow. Please, no drugs in the library. And we outline the reasons why. They come back, if they come back again and do this again, it may escalate to a 2-week suspension. What happens is we end up with unknown unknowns. We end up with no names. We end up with no way to identify a person. As guards change, as staff shifts change, nobody has the ability to identify the person that has a consequence for a progressive approach in not using in the library. So the idea is now if they have a library card, even if we understand people will circumvent this process. If we are removing a portion of the safety concerns from the washrooms through this pilot, it gives us an understanding of where it's impactful. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that answers my question. And I think the other question that I had was what is the average number of incidents related to folks that are distributing and folks that are using? Like, what's the average number that we see monthly? Because I'm asking because then if this pilot was to go ahead, how do we measure those two numbers and what do we define as success? Again, remembering that in the warmer months, things go down. So if you could just give me like the average number of folks that are distributing and folks that are using.
I don't have an accurate number for distribution. Our categories, we have a number for drug growth. We have a number for drug use. That's indicated in our incident reporting system. And through the incident reporting system, working with our analytics team, we could go back and understand the sales part of that. We're looking through keyword searches and going through the thousands of incident reports that we write on an annual basis. We can get those two averages for you, but I don't have an average to give you on this right now. We do indicate ambulance, emergency medical, we indicate substance use, we indicate naloxone administration, and many other categories that are outlined in the incident reports.
Okay, and I think this will be my last question. So if this pilot goes ahead and those numbers don't change, then what do we do?
What do we conclude?
Well, I want to find out. So if those numbers don't change, then what do we do?
I think a fulsome conversation. I don't even believe we're gonna, as the pilot carries on, having discussions with staff, having discussions with leadership, maintaining conversations with the board throughout the pilot, in the hours, in the days, and the weeks, I think is going to be very telling. And I don't think it would be a difficult decision to identify if it wasn't having an impact to cancel the pilot and scrap this idea. This is an idea amongst many other ideas because of a lack of ideas and a lack of support and funding from areas and institutions that we are not. So if the idea doesn't work, I don't think anybody at this table is opposed to saying, let's get rid of this idea. It was an idea that nobody around this table wanted to bring to the forefront. And it's been a difficult several weeks even talking through this process. So like I said at the onset, we're completely aligned in this. We're exhausted of ideas at this point. We're looking forward to engaging in other groups that have come to the forefront to talk about possible suggestions and ideas moving forward.
Okay. My last comment, and then that's it for me. Yeah, I've been doing some research, and I could be wrong. I could be wrong. If I'm wrong, I'll accept that I'm wrong. I think if this pilot were to go through, we would be the only library in North America that is doing this at this time. And I don't know that we want to have that distinction. At the last meeting, I did say that there will be issues with asking folks for library cards. We've seen that. We hear from community. We've seen the emails. I would say that there were other suggestions that I mentioned at the last board meeting, and I want us to also feel like it doesn't always have to be a binary decision, right? Closure or present IE. There are things that we can do. So I'll mention these three things. If the pilot goes ahead, maybe we can continue doing it. If it doesn't, I would ask that we turn our attention to this. So one, again, the numbers would be helpful. And then two, we need to send an emergency letter to the mayor and council and MVPs about this crisis. If we haven't formally, as a board, as an institution, sent a formal letter that is saying that we are under pressure of this opioid crisis, then it's hard to do pilot projects. So I would say, let's do that right away and ask for the required resources that we need. We heard today that we started a peer support program. It's 14 months. We have community connectors. It's been 1 month. We haven't even done the analysis on this. So we need more resources to do some of these things. The third one is we heard from the union. We should meet with them. They are community partners. We have a community partner list in our report, 2026 community partner list. We should reach out to all of them and say, hey, you know, this is a challenge that we are facing. Are there any other ideas that you can come up with that really allows us to serve the community the way we need to do as a public service? So I'll just leave those three there so that it's on record that that there are other things that we can do proactively so that it doesn't feel like we're saying there's no crisis. There is definitely a crisis. So those would be my three things, and I look forward to the whole.
Okay, thank you, Kojo. And then I think that's on like after. Yes, go ahead. We need a numbers. Go on.
I have prepared remarks on this. Tonight's decision is a big one, and it has attracted much attention. Passions are heated. People are asking the existential questions of what public libraries are for and for whom they are meant to serve. It is good that we ask these questions. The library needs to be able to defend and account for every action it takes. There is a crisis at Central Library, and we need to address that crisis. The board has been asked to approve measures where members are asked to present library cards for entry to Central Library. This is, as the union had rightly pointed out, a barrier to entry. We as a board have always sought to reduce barriers to entry wherever we find them. Physical barriers, economic barriers, social barriers, barriers of any kind. Implementing barriers is complete anathema to the kind of library and community space we want to be. But we are facing a crisis and we have to do something. The status quo is unacceptable. This has become a matter of public safety, and the library needs to be safe. Parallels have been drawn to the time of COVID, which is fair. Now, as then, safety comes before any services we provide. Let us be clear. The library is pretty much on its own. We have community partners, but it is the library that needs to take the lead. The library needs to address this crisis with its current level of resources. We are not getting extra money from other levels of government to address this crisis. The feds are cutting back. The province has not adjusted its public library operating grant in terms of hard scores for 30 years. State consumption sites were closed under this provincial administration, and I do not expect that same administration to open them back up again. Even our partner, the city, sought budget cuts, and we barely got the maintenance budget we requested. Our advocacy efforts are non-stop, through FOPL, through CULC, and through OLA. Even if extra help was to come from other levels of government, it will not help us when we open tomorrow. It will not come in time for March break next week. We need to act now, today, on our own. The risk is now, and we cannot wait for an incident to manifest itself. I do not see a luxury of time. Since the time of amalgamation, the library has been expected to do more with less, and we have done a fairly good job with that, expanding hours and services without really changing our FTE count. There is, however, a hard limit to how far more with less can actually go, and we may be approaching those edges now. No extra money is coming. No extra staff are coming. However we address this crisis, it has to be with the tools the library already has. So what does the library do? What tools does it already have to address this challenge? We can control access. We can control operating hours. Requiring library cards for entry is a barrier, but it is a minimal one. It is a reasonable next step which is intended to reduce illegal or antisocial activity by introducing a measure of accountability. Library card membership is a club, but an open one available to all. This will make Central a safer place. The library needs to be safe for everyone, and in particular, safe for families and children. children should not be exposed to risky behavior. If we take this next step and measure its efficacy, then we can make informed decisions as to the steps after that. Is this what we want to do? No, of course not, but we have to do something. We are on our own, and the cavalry is not coming. We can be a library or we can be a safe consumption site. We cannot be both. They cannot coexist. If we need to stay true to our mandate of providing library services and access to information, we need to keep the library a library, and we need to be a safe, welcoming space for all, and safe before all else. I support the temporary measure of requiring library cards to enter with Central Library.
I saw Councilor Patch, Dana, and then Councilor Peak. Councilor Patch.
I think I've said enough already, so I'm not going to repeat what I said earlier. And I respect everyone's got different views on the board, and they're free to express those opposing views. That's okay. I think one of the advocacy tools we have here in front of us is the budget. I find it really hard to sit here and have a conversation where we're saying we don't have the staff, we don't have the resources, and we don't have the money, after we just came out of a budget process where we could have asked for it. I was willing to go to the council table to whatever this organization needed to deal with these crises. If we didn't ask for enough money, that's on us. I'm just saying that out loud. If we did not ask for enough money and we needed more money, we should have asked for more money. Because I was willing to have that conversation at council, where the conversation should be having about funding. Not here. We don't fund ourselves. We're funded by city council. So I think that's just an opportunity we have to take when it comes up next time, as politically difficult as it is. The mayor decided to pick an arbitrary number, and I think that instilled fear in people, instilled a conservatism in lots of organizations, and they said, well, I don't want to put forward a bigger ask because I'm being told to put forward a smaller ask, right? I just want to say that from me to everybody else here, I'll fight that fight for you. I don't mind. I think if libraries need to ask above and beyond in situations where we're going through a crisis, then we need to ask above and beyond. We need to put that to the city council who approves the budget. So I just want to say to the record, because that for me is something I don't think we can fairly talk about here. Just coming out of a budget process saying we don't have enough money. We had the opportunity moments ago to do it, so next year, let's take that opportunity. I think what I'll also say is that I really agree with what Kojo was saying earlier. When we talked about conviviality, when we talked about consultation, and I agree that there have been some really serious moments in the library. I come to the library semi-constantly. I've seen some things happen in the library. I've also had lots of experiences that are really positive. And I've brought young family members here. I've had a whole spectrum of experiences in the library. I've rented rooms. I've done everything here. Use the makerspace. On the whole, what I see is right in this moment that we're experiencing, because I come here regularly, this is less of a crisis point at this moment in time, and it will be in the future. And so implementing a pilot project when the crisis is not upon us, to me, does not make sense. Sure, maybe we want to be seen to be doing something to signal to the community that we're taking this seriously. There's lots of things that we can do to do that, and we want to instill trust in people and institutions to make sure that they come here, and they want to come here, and they feel welcome to come here. That's why I got the amendment for it earlier, because I thought having that conversation and consultation is important. Again, I think we're not reaching the right audience. We're not reaching everybody. We're not reaching a conversation point here. What we're doing is saying we had some serious incidents. We reported those serious incidents, but we're also missing some key data about the averages around that. We don't really quite know exactly how prevalent they are, how the severity, what the severity looks like amongst our incidents. And we're making this decision, which I think the community has really clearly said, and I'm going to say again, overwhelmingly said, they're really concerned about us making without data. That's not what libraries do. It's not what libraries do. I've sat here and listened so intently to how passionate we all are as people who care about data, care about evidence, care about what we're going to do. And I'm saying experts have sat here in front of us today and said, don't do this. We don't have the data to back up doing it. I understand we have to take an action. I think taking this action puts us in a really bad spot, like Kojo said, to be the only library in North America, or one of only a couple maybe, I don't know if there's another library out there, to be taking this measure says a lot. So I really hope people do not vote in favor of this. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councilor. I'll pass it on to Dana.
Okay.
I guess first, Dog, and I just want a little clarification as to exactly what's going to be put before us. The motion initially was that we endorse the plan as proposed, correct? And now there is the addition of that amendment.
Yes, that's the original two that are in the report, and then the third amendment that we just voted on.
And so for example, does that contemplate that some of the things that Kojo identified would be under that umbrella of consultation aspects of life? I mean, I said earlier, there's no reason that we would only be doing a thing with the pilot, but better that we will also be doing other things at the same time.
I think if
I mean, I just want to know what the home is going to be for us.
Yeah, I think if you, right now, during your opportunities, you direct staff to include some pieces within that consultation and that report back and take measures, Paul or Chad or any of the other members of SLT can speak to that and their ability to do that for the following the pilot or concurrent to the pilot.
I mean,
So yes.
I think that's going to be really important because I mean, I appreciate Councillor Kresh talking about Gayforce data. It's not just limited to the kinds of things that have been identified by the experts here, but presumably we should also get data as it relates to some of the impacts. We're making assumptions perhaps in terms of families, the level to which they disperse. We need to be getting more about that as well so that we really have full information, if you will, in respect to all of the different aspects of this. So that way we can really be confident that we have it only as sort of addressed one. But I just want to understand sort of where some of these other avenues may be landing. If the selects to endorse the proof, what becomes of Sadia days in time?
Specifically in terms of the advocacy piece.
Well, or some of the things that or some of the things that Kojo identified as well.
Yeah, I'm wondering, Paul or Chad, if either of you can speak to that and maybe including some of the measures that Kojo brought up, including the advocacy as well as the other measures, like looking at the numbers appropriately and all of that information, and then bring that forward for our consideration for June.
Yeah, I don't see any problems, and I would confer with our senior leadership team on concurrently running partnership discussions, advocacy letters with those partnership groups, as well as taking a look at the data and the information that is going to be presented to make informed decision, a long-term permanent decision.
So, okay, Jamer, okay. I do see your hand, Allison. I'm just gonna go to Councillor McBeacon. I saw your hand first. Did you want to go ahead?
Well, thanks, Chair. A couple of observations and a couple of observations and pointing a little bit more direction forward. Sometimes you need to turn things inside out and upside down to make them right side up. And I observe with some sincere appreciation that we have, to a large extent, been able to disagree perhaps tonight without being disagreeable. I think that's really important and a moniker of how we, my experience is how we work. That having been said, I would urge that we need to be bolder than we've been and broader thinking than we've been, even that I've been as a member of the board, around building a foundation, seeing this as a first phase to something bigger and better and more fulsome and stronger and going to make us a better community. A true city where that's the best place to raise a child, and if you're my age, the aging place. Unless and until we do that, and that's what the 169 partner reference I made was about. I don't want us to lose that. By embracing the broader conversation, we have the potential to lay a stronger foundation to move towards the ultimate goal of actually working to address the problem, not just shovel the deck chairs, as they say. So we're not gonna get there if we're tepid. You know, I mean, we can bemoan lack of staff, lack of money, oh gosh, golly gee, but until we can find a way together, and it's best if we do it together, everybody here and the board. It's going to be difficult to move forward. It's somebody said to me the other day, Teddy, you're getting old. If you've got any wisdom to share, you better share it quick. So that's my last comment this evening. Thanks.
Thanks, Council. Go ahead, Allison.
Thanks very much. So I want to start this recommendation. So I think, as I said before, we have to start doing something. We need to do something. I think this has actually been really well thought out in a considerate, compassionate manner. It is a pilot project, and it is not designed to keep certain people out of the library. It is intended to reduce certain types of behavior in the library. And so I know I'm hearing my colleagues speak about, wanting more data and wanting to get more expertise. I'm going to speak now as a librarian, I was a librarian for many years. Librarians are experts. They understand how libraries are supposed to work, how they're supposed to function in order for them to fulfill their mission, to fulfill their values, and to serve their patrons. And I think what we're hearing is that our library is not able to do that while drug use is such a problem in the library. And I think that expertise should be trusted. In terms of gathering data, I understand that we might want to understand, okay, well, how many complaints have we received? How many drug use incidents have there been with the library? How many overdoses have there been? We have staff that are trained to deliver Narcan, and they do that on a weekly, if not daily basis. Is that not data enough for us to realize that this problem is out of control? It's out of control. The library is not a safe place for people in this moment, for our staff and for our patrons. And I understand the concern about, no other library is doing this, so do we want to take this extreme step? We've never been in such an extreme situation before. Nobody wants to have anybody feel excluded or unwelcome in the library. The library is a lifeline for so many people. It is an important place for so many people. But as long as we have we've got this unchecked drug use in the library, when I say unchecked, I'm not saying that to suggest that steps haven't been taken to do that, but what we've been able to do so far has just not been effective. And I think our staff, who are professionals with a lot of expertise in librarianship and have thoughtfully, carefully considered what we need to do, have come up with this option. We can't think of anything else at this time. I think that's a signal to us that this might be a really important option for us to take right now. If we can't think of anything else that might work, that doesn't mean that there aren't other things. But given the severity of the problem, and the fact that we've had people thinking about this for years, I think it's time that we do this. We have to try it. That's my perspective. Thank you.
Thanks, Allison. Carly, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to add that while I don't wish to diminish the idea that this would be the potentially first library in North America to implement such a measure in under such significant times, other libraries have experienced such significant issues, and their approach was to close their doors.
Yeah.
And so while I appreciate that this is an extreme approach and one that I don't think any of us want to do, closing the doors is unacceptable. And so I do appreciate that staff have been so thoughtful in putting forward an option in the face of that being the example that other libraries have set for us. I will also just say, to the point of data, and I appreciate this is my researcher hat, pilots provide us with multiple types of data. They provide us with effectiveness data, which is what I've heard a lot of our conversation around tonight, but they also provide us with impact data, and they provide us with feasibility data. And I think as we speak about the need for data, that feasibility piece is important. I appreciate that the weather's getting warmer. We may not be getting the effectiveness data that we would get if we were to pilot this in the middle of the winter. But if we were to pilot this in the middle of winter without feasibility or impact data, we would be turning people out into the cold. So I think there is a need for us to consider the layers of data and the ways that we can move forward when we have that data.
Thank you, Carly. Any other members want to speak? Jen? What? Sorry, then Lynn. Sorry, Auntie.
I just wanted to respond to data at the last board meeting. You received your report saying that Paradise attended at Central Osprey was under 5 times. Student library security administered also 44 times. So I think that does speak to some of the things happening at Central. We've been hearing about it since I've been on the board. 2023, we've been hearing about drug use, drug distribution in the library, and yet when Paul, the chair, the vice chair, presented to City Council in January of 2025, one of the council members asked, "Why do you need social workers at Central? Why do you need security at Central?" And I think that indicates a lack of understanding of the severity of the issues happening at Central. It's only now that the library has taken some drastic measures that this issue is getting the attention it deserves. We are hearing from the media. We are hearing from engaged community members that are coming forward with solutions and ideas, and that to me is where we want to be. We want to elevate the issue. We want to engage the community. And I thank all the community members for coming forward. This is where we want to be. Unfortunately, it has taken a drastic measure to get us here, but I think we need to move forward with the measure because this is what is bringing attention to the issue. This is what's keeping us in the media. And then we move forward in engaging with partners. So I applaud this initiative and I have to support it.
Thank you, Jen. Lynn, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you so much for everyone who came tonight. It's really lovely to see so many community members out and others.
Okay, I'm great. No, please, everybody in the room, please give the speaker a chance to speak. We were very respectful listening to everybody else. It would be great if you allowed us the same courtesy. Please, go ahead.
Thank you. Sure. I also they have prepared some comments, so I should just read them. So this is an extraordinarily difficult moment for our library system, and I want to begin by acknowledging that there are no easy answers here. We have heard and deeply respect the concerns raised by us, by staff, by TV, by community members, and by my fellow board members here this evening. I also recognize the very real safety challenges that have been unfolding here at Central. Challenges that are affecting staff well-being, patron experiences, and the library's employees to fulfill the role of a public library to provide free access to space, resources, and services. HPL's values call us to inclusion, respect, and intellectual freedom, and they also call us to accountability and innovation. To me, supporting this temporary check-in protocol is an attempt to balance all of these values in a moment when none are available, when none of the available options are perfect to us. I support Paul and the leadership's decision because I believe it is measured, time-limited, and an evaluative response to a rapidly deteriorating situation. It maintains access to the library, which is essential, while introducing a very minimal level of accountability intended to reduce harm. I also appreciate that this is a pilot with clear evaluation criteria, external reporting, and a flexibility to adjust or to not continue in the future. And I think that responsiveness matters. This is not a decision I take lightly. I understand the discomfort and I understand the fear that this could feel exclusionary. but in the severity of the safety issues and the responsibility, the operational responsibility that rests with Paul, I believe this measure is a reasonable step to protect staff, patrons, and to stabilize the environment so the Central Library can remain open.
Thank you, Lynn. Any other board members want to speak or have any questions? Councilor Rich?
Yes, I could. Okay, here. There.
Thanks. I just wanted to make a clarification. I think it's important as we're listening to this and anyone listening to it back later on, that when we're talking about staff, right, we are talking about management staff. I think it's important. We literally have the representatives of our library in the room today. And the representatives for frontline workers that are unionized, who duly elect their presidents and vice presidents and executives and make sure those people are installed, right? Those folks are accountable to frontline workers and for raising their voices here at the meeting today. So I know we also, library staff and management, speak to frontline workers. I get that. I just want to make it really clear. The folks who represent frontline workers have stated their position here today, and we're talking about staff. I think it's important to distinguish between management staff and frontline workers, and we're saying that because the folks are right here in the room today. So I think it's just important to mention that. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't see any other members with their hands up, so I'm just going to make a couple of comments to end off, and I'm glad everybody went earlier on, so I'm going to try not to repeat what anybody was said. But firstly, I do just sincerely want to say thank you to everybody who did show up and the passion that you show for this. I think one thing everybody around this table and in this room has in common is that we understand and empathize, and we know the crisis situation that we're in, and that something needs to be done. And none of us are diminishing the importance of the very, very complex social challenges facing society and our city right now. So thank you so much for coming out. We really appreciate it. And to all the board members for your thoughtful comments. And to the senior leadership team for also taking some action. The reason I bring this up is because, you know, if you're looking at the news, if you're looking at what the health unit is saying or what other municipalities in the province and around Canada are saying, is that it's pretty similar everywhere where we're getting to this crisis point with the opioid crisis again. And everybody's looking somewhere for support. So because of that, I just want to say that advocacy is at a root of what we do here, and it's not something that we do as a one-off. As let me one-off now start talking to the mayor, let me now start talking to the MVP. That's something that's ongoing, and we acknowledge the importance that advocacy plays in library work and why it's so important to get that messaging across. So as Paul alluded to, we will have a report in April we've been discussing where we will be talking about that advocacy larger framework that we're working on as a library, acknowledging that no, it's not up to us. We inherited this problem from other levels of government who are not taking responsibility, and because we're there as a public institution that's the face, it's falling on us. But I do want to say that in those circumstances, our staff have been able to really, in a really great way, provide that support to the community through the community connectors and the peer support workers, and be very agile with all the challenges that are being thrown at them, which most library workers probably did not go to school for this. So I want to recognize that, and it's really important that we recognize the work that's being done around the table. And then I just want to say that from my perspective, and the reason why I'm supporting this is because advocacy is great when it's happening, but it doesn't do us any good to wait until something comes to us. We are a public institution. It's our responsibility to do what we can in the interim until those decisions are made at higher levels that we don't have any involvement in. But at least we're taking some action to try and combat with what we're facing. And we're showing responsibility. We're taking accountability as far as we are able to do. And something we're able to do is control this, do controlled access. And something I really want to commend staff for is that they were able to come up with a way that's as low barrier as possible. I understand it does create barriers for some, but it's thought out in a way that it creates the fewest amount of barriers as possible for access, recognizing that HPL is a public institution that everybody should have access to. So I want to just say that. And a couple of the other pieces that I guess are sort of questions for Paul and Chad and maybe the other members of the senior leadership team. I recognize we may be the first library in North America. That was a really good point, Pojo, to bring that up. But I just want to ask the other libraries that are facing the situation, what's their response? Like, as far as I know, the 2 libraries I know that have faced similar situations to the degree that HPL is facing right now, their solution was to close for months, as far as I know. And I just want to know, Paul or Chad, if you can speak to it, what was the trigger for them to close?
I'm adding to it.
Okay, sorry. So do we know, like, what was the trigger for them to close? Because my understanding is that we've surpassed the number of incidents that another library typically would have closed at. So Paul, maybe you can confirm.
Well, I think, so I don't know the exact numbers, but certainly it was, a similar situation in terms of an accelerating drug crisis happening within their space. There are specific circumstances around Saskatoon where they actually still have a safe consumption site in Saskatoon, and the safe consumption site closed because they couldn't handle all the medical emergencies that were going on. So it was like, so the library was already in crisis, and basically, so now the safe injection place is closing, and they were seeing a really accelerated situation. So that's what caused it. And I think in that case, what happened was it did lead to some action on the part of the city and the Ministry of Health to put some new interventions in place. I think the only other library that I'm aware of, major library, that looked at this was St. Paul in Minnesota. They were ready to do this, but what happened was the city came. Their library was adjacent to a large open air drug market. This was ongoing, and so what happened was the city came forward and said, we are going to renovate your building. We're going to find you another space to temporarily locate you, and while your building's being renovated, we're going to make sure that basically it was the largest community open market of drug consumption in St. Paul. They actually worked on closing it. So in the case was the action prevented them from needing to actually do it. So I think that's some of the information that we've been able to ascertain, and I think just honestly we're in that position where we're this winter has been similar in terms of the level of severity and the persistence of it. And I think we also need to acknowledge, as we have, that the cold winter certainly contributed to an acceleration of that, as we saw it early 2024.
Sorry, one more thing. There's been a lot of questions around the timing of this and why it's needed now and why we're proposing to start in March, right? So I'm wondering, Chad or Paul, if you could speak to the importance of March break, maybe speaking to, why you targeted that specifically, knowing what happened during duress.
Thanks, Chair. Specifically, immediate response is needed. What we needed was the amount of time to organize and ensure that the staff were prepared and the library was prepared as best they could be. And that brought us into the middle of March. March break was discussed as an opportunity to provide an enhanced safe area for our membership or for our community. And we also, as discussed earlier, talked about should we be in position to have to turn people away coming into the spring months versus starting this in the middle of February or during some of those older weeks would not be conducive of what we wanted to do. Does that answer your question, Jeff?
Yeah. I I don't really have any other questions, but I did just want to make those few comments. Nick, did you have something?
Yes, just to very quickly say, I had the OLBA meeting last night, and other library systems in Kenora, Thunder Bay, and Stratford, more. They are following our live stream tonight and looking for our example. So while we may be the first, as Kojo pointed out, that is not necessarily a stigma. We are taking that bold action. In the absence of any other better ideas, which we are always receptive to. That's it.
Yeah, and I'll close my comments by saying if there are other ideas, definitely from what I've seen, our staff are receptive. Paul, Chad, I know, you walk around talking to staff all the time, but if there are other ideas, please talk to us, send them to Paul and Chad and the other members here, and I'm sure they'd be happy to hear and meet with people to see if there are other ways we can help. And again, I just want to point out, it's a pilot project, so if there are things that we can do, the purpose of the pilot is to try things out and be agile as things move forward. So we'll definitely make sure that we're keeping on top of that, and we're also listening at the report back to the results of how it's impacted people. Sounds great.
Just wanted to say that I hear what you're saying in terms of having people reach out to us and reach out to Paul. I think it's really important for there to be some means to do so, right? We're here in this semi-opaque board structure with a bunch of people sitting here who are not delegating, and so I want to say to you that if that's what we're doing, then the library has to find a way to communicate broadly and saying, here's the address to email us at, here's what you say, here's who it comes to, here's the groups that reach out. That was the point of my amendment. So I think you're speaking to the spirit of that, but practically speaking, for people who are on the ground doing this work, they have no means to connect with the board of directors, as was made evidence earlier today when all of our email addresses, for instance, for good reason, aren't made public, right? So I think it's really important that we actually have a conduit for people to do that and that it's clear how they do it. Thanks.
Thank you, Melissa. Yeah.
Last time, I promise. I just wanted to say that I also think it's important that none of these discussions be reduced to an effort to demonstrate to the public that we're doing something. In many regards, I think that this is almost an illustration of the conviviality that you were talking about, Kojo. This is us all rubbing up against each other and trying to find ways to come up with measures that are going to be responsible, at least on a temporary basis. And so in that regard, that mere discussion maybe sort of moves us closer in that kind of direction. Can I just take a moment to mind? I just wanted to take a couple of minutes to share some of my thoughts, if I could. The reasons to pilot the requirement for a library card temporarily to enter the central branch in an effort to address the issues that currently beset it are, by those who put forward arguments for either side, considered as compelling as those that are contrary to their point of view. The library's democratic nature and foundational principles certainly do not contemplate such a measure, nor was it likely ever contemplated that the library would become the de facto solution for the social issues that are facing the city. Just frankly, these other cities in the province and beyond have also cemented its issues. Providing a place to go for those who are unhoused or are navigating other catastrophic physical and mental challenges. I struggled in my consideration of suggested approaches, attempting to identify ways to reconcile or balance the needs of all library users, not suggesting at all that it's a binary choice. All members and guests must feel welcome and safe at the library. Expectations of appropriate conduct by all library users represent measures to do just that, to ensure that all users can enjoy the vast and varied services and activities of the library and its physical space, and that all staff, too, are safe and feel able to perform their roles. And there's certainly no question that all staff are doing their utmost in current circumstances, taking on tasks and duties beyond those long associated with work in the library. So many people and groups rely on the library and on Central for access to materials, resources, services, activities, community, comfort, engagement, reflection, and connection. Closing Central would create a complete disruption and would have a disparate impact on those whose access to such services depends entirely upon access to Central. We are advised that the many ongoing committed efforts and strategies to ensure that Central remains an attractive, welcoming space, a gathering place perceived as safe for everyone who enters, including the community members who may currently be coming to the library for shelter and warmth. That those strategies are stretched and are no longer as effective as necessary without additional strategies. So the requirement for a card is certainly not a solution. Solutions for the erosion of the social fabric and for the economic and social crises that envelop us must be implemented at other levels. The requirement to present a card is rather a temporary measure to attempt to restore Central's conditions and revive broad community engagement and participation at the branch, concurrent with some of the other measures that we have discussed today.
Thank you, Dana. Okay, I'm not seeing any other hands. Okay, not seeing any other hands, so I will call the vote on the motion as amended. So all in favor?
Can we just read the amendment just so?
Yeah, Erica, do you have the amendment? Okay, Erica's gonna pull the amendment on the screen for everybody, but just a reminder, it's the first two recommendations, as well as this amended motion.
Just double check that I've got this right now.
Carly, can you please? Erica.
Just the impact? Yes, yeah. I see that. Making it by us.
Okay, okay.
Well, then I can't read it. Can you read it?
Okay, the amendment to the main motion is an additional motion that says that staff engage with partner organizations and interested parties to hear how the temporary library changes and toxic drug crisis are impacting the library members. That staff monitor and report on usage metrics and incidents, and that staff come forward at the June meeting with any changes planned based on their monitoring and engagement. No problem. So all in favor of the motion as amended, please put up your hands. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Wait, 1, 2, 3, 6. 7. 7 in favor. Okay, and all against. 2. Okay. Okay. So recorded vote. This passes 7-2. Thank you very much. Yeah, Kosha.
Is it possible to make a motion now that this pilot project is up and running?
Should that be during other items at the end of the agenda?
Well, it's on the same topic, so that's why I want to bring it forward now.
Matter.
I don't see why.
Okay, sure. Yeah. Sorry, just thinking procedurally.
Yeah, so based on everything that has happened today, in combination of all the stuff that we've been talking about, I would like to put a motion forward that Chief Librarian and the senior leadership writes an emergency letter about this crisis and the need for additional resources to our local MPPs, the mayor, and the council, and also request a time to talk about this crisis at the next General Issues Committee at City Council. And then the second point would be that the senior leadership and our chief librarian meet with QP 932 and community partners that are listed in our report on the 2026 partnership list to come up with other strategies that can support the crisis. So I think that should be done immediately. And then the last piece is just making sure that moving on, we get some key performance metrics from the peer support program and the community connectors, and possibly have them get a presentation on its effectiveness at the next board meeting. So those are the 3 points for the motion.
I'll second it.
Thank you.
So, sorry, I'm just gonna repeat Kojo back because I think Erica is typing so she can put it on screen. So can you, which you might not be, but maybe can you answer?
Yeah, no, okay.
So the first part was that we write the emergency letter to the MPPs and the cities, the members of council of the city, stating that we are in an emergency and crisis, referencing that the library had to put forward this measure in response.
Yes.
And was there a request of them or?
Yes, and that we would the chair and the senior leadership would like to delegate at the next GIC to tell them exactly what's happening.
Okay, thank you. That's what it is, yeah. And then staff, the senior leadership and chair of HPL will delegate at GIZ. Next opportunity, yeah.
Yeah.
And then the second piece of that motion was that Paul and senior leadership team, the chief librarian and senior leadership meet with QP 932.
And the community partners on our list here,
Yep.
and come up with a way for other community members to reach out to discuss other options that we can use to alleviate these issues.
Are you okay with that being included in the June report then?
Sure.
That report back in June? Because that's when they're gonna be bringing the other report.
Sure.
Yeah, okay, so if you can add that, Erica, that be included in the June report back to the board. And the third one was that we come up with KPIs.
KPIs for the peer support and the community connectors. I think we can get a presentation of their effectiveness, what they're doing, what supports they need at the June meeting as well.
Well, will you be able to do that by June, do you think? With the metrics, yeah? Okay. Okay, Erica, did you get all of that? Not to put you on the spot.
It's not gonna look very.
No, that's okay, that's okay.
Oh, so that's.
Yeah. Oh, Allison, sorry, did you have a question on the motion?
Yeah, I do. I'm not quite sure. I'm not sure I'm understanding where this motion is sitting. Is this part of the recommendations? Is this part of a different discussion? I'm a little bit I can see where the recommendations are coming from, but I think that there's a lot of points embedded in there that we haven't necessarily had the time to discuss. So I'm just not sure what these proposals are in relation to the recommendation that we just made, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think this is under the discussion, or this would be under new items arising, yeah, because it's related to the item. So I think we're considering, it's basically a new motion asking us to bring forward new reports. So basically the vote would be, are we in favor of this motion asking staff to bring this information back?
And so like there's like 6 different points that we're asking for.
Yes, yeah. There's no report attached to it though, it's a motion asking for staff to bring this information so we can consider it in June.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, I don't see any other questions. Kojo, if you could just have a peek at what Erica's put in, just confirm that it's, the wording is okay. And Councilor Brach as well. Keep that with it.
I can see.
Local LPPs. Yes.
Yeah, it's fine. Crazy.
It's okay. Does anybody have questions of Kojo or Councilor? Go ahead, Councilor.
I don't need to speak, or can you hear me okay?
Can't do it because
Allison, you can hear me.
Oh. Well, the speaker's right there, guys.
Yeah.
It was. Oh, here, take this one now.
Oh, no, I got it. It's okay. So is it safe for me to assume that if we're going to write to MPPs and others and say, we want more resources or something, we're actually going to spell out what money we're looking for, what it's for? This isn't this isn't just wishful thinking, right? This should have some substance to it.
Yeah, I just want to point out, I'll let Kojo speak as well, but I want to remind you all that we do have a report planned for next month anyhow in April, where we're going to discuss our advocacy strategy for reaching out to those other levels of government, but appreciating that because we're at this crisis point where we had to approve this, maybe we start now and then present later on what we've been doing on the advocacy, but we start now. So yes, and I'm sure Paul can speak to this. I think that we would take feedback from the board on what we should include in that letter and what we're trying to advocate for. Echo, so I don't know if you want to respond to that. I can turn it on to you.
Who's investing in new sound system?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think this whole evening we've been saying there's a crisis. If we haven't sent a public letter to the people that make the decision that are creating the crisis, what are we doing, right? So to me, I'm like, we all have said there's a crisis. So all the crisis stuff that we've mentioned at this meeting should be in the letter. The number of overdoses, the number of everything that everyone has said here about there's a crisis, that should be in the letter, right? So I think that's the point of the letter. If as Councillor Ted McMeekin has said, if there are numbers about expanding the community connector program and the peer support, let's put it in there, right? So I think that the letter is also meant to say we are in a crisis and we need support. We can't just say, oh, we are just going to do our thing. We need support. So that's just the essence of this motion, is to also let them know that there's a crisis. These are things we've done. We had hundreds of emails. We had folks showing up. So we want to put them on notice that this is something that they need to be aware of, because they also live here, right?
So you're making my point for me, Kojo. All I'm saying is if you're gonna gather people together who have the authority to make decisions about allocating resources, and the sweep it to switch, if that's the argument, we need to be specific about what it is we want, why we want it, when we want it, and how we want them to go about giving it to us. Right? Okay, we're on side. Okay.
And I just wanted to just clarify that I think that direction is very clear, and we've already have identified a number of things, some of which are related to what happens in here. There's our other interventions, say, in the neighborhood, and you know, I think that emergency letter is very important to get out immediately. So thank you.
Okay, so I'll call a vote to add these three motions to our agenda as well. So we can just vote on them and have staff come back with those reports. So all in favor of the motion? So I see 8 hands here. 1, 2, 3, 4. 9 hands here. All opposed?
Oh.
Okay, and 1 opposed. One opposed. Okay, thank you. So I'm going to just say that we should maybe take a 5-minute break because we do need to get to other matters, but we're already at 9:15. So I just want to confer with our CEO and senior leadership what can be deferred to next month. So if you'll give us maybe 5 minutes to come back, I appreciate everybody staying and sitting for so long to discuss that important matter, and everybody for coming as well. Thank you for staying for me. We really appreciate the engagement on this.
So, and I guess I've already said that we can do the presentation.
I think facilities master plan, sorry, Chad.
The recording has stopped.
Alright.
So, we have some consent items that whether
Yeah. You're in that.
year-end metrics keep track, like
Now, can we maybe make it instead that if somebody has an item to pull, we pull it rather than each staff giving a presentation on each of them?
you do that, but yeah, but it's been like, if you wanna, just answer the questions.
Yeah. Okay, I'm not going to, yeah.
You're right. I will say,
Oh, Okay.
Just it's
Make sure you
82.
No, the break or are we done? Okay,
I
to the one. Yeah. Thank y'all.
Sorry,
Sorry, Paul. Yeah. Okay.
I think we did have to.
What happened? No, I'm just saying that we like.
But I think I'll get this one.
No. Sorry.
There's nothing pressing with the financial report.
Oh, no, you've been repetitive. I'm saying the same thing now, 3 times 4 months.
So we could, like, the thing is, if we do consent,
Oh, that's exactly.
or I wouldn't even
Anybody
have
need
to
anything?
consent, I mean, you can talk about it.
I
next
might.
month,
Right.
Or it's one's
Okay, do I take you the? It's nothing like that. Yes. It's all the same stuff.